Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to call the regular meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the January 12th. I can't believe it's January 12th already, you guys. It's going very fast. January 12th, 2021 Vista Consolidated Meeting. The meeting is now called to order. The meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with State of California Executive Order N-29-20. In the event a quorum of the City Council loses electrical power or suffers an internet connection outage that is not corrected within 10 minutes, the meeting will automatically be adjourned. Items on the agenda that the Council has not taken action on will be placed on a future agenda. So with that, we will do a roll call by our City Clerk, Kathy Valdez.
Thank you. Please state your here when I call your name. Mayor Ritter.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Green.
Here.
Councilmember Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Contreras.
Present.
Councilmember Melendez. Sorry.
Present.
All members are present. Also joining us are City Attorney Daryl Piper and City Manager Patrick Johnson.
Okay, with that, in accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buenos Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buenos Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. For members of the public that are participating through Zoom, you may raise your hand to indicate you'd like to speak by clicking the raise hand feature on your screen or by pressing *9 on your phone. Instructions on how to join the meeting through Zoom are provided on the agenda cover sheet. You may only speak on an item once, and public comment is limited to 3 minutes. So with that, we go to the approval of our agenda by our City Manager, Patrick Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes to the agenda tonight.
Okay, we have one presentation this evening. If any members of the public wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise hand feature or by pressing *9 now. Speakers will be called upon after the staff presentation. So, City Clerk, are there any speakers right now before the presentation?
We do have 2 individuals that would like to speak.
On the presentation?
Yes. It appears so. Did you want to hear the presentation first or?
It says to be called upon after this presentation, so I guess we'll go forward with the presentation. So Member Contreras has invited Brady Bradshaw from Oceana and Janice Jones from Surfrider Foundation to provide a presentation on plastic pollution. So I'll turn it over to Brady.
Okay, I actually think Janice was going to kick us off.
Oh, okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Councilmember Contreras, for inviting us to do this presentation this evening. I am a 25-year plus resident of Vista, and I'm an educator in Oceanside. In addition, I'm an avid beach cleaner, and I use what I find to make things. In fact, I made the sculpture that's in front of the wave out of plastic debris found here on our local beaches.
And I'm Brady Bradshaw. I'm the campaign organizer for Oceana in Southern California. I'm also a national champion freediver, and I spend a lot of time training off of our coastline and see a lot of plastic. Next slide, please. 400 million tons of plastic is the number that we're seeing produced every year. 17.6 billion pounds of that ends up entering the ocean from land-based sources. That's equivalent of dumping a garbage truck of plastic into the ocean every minute. Next slide. So marine animals often mistake plastic for food. Plastic and microplastics accumulate in our food web, and it's now in our fish, it's in our water, it's in our air, and it's in our bodies. Next slide. Data from the United Nations Environment Program shows that the projection of plastic production will skyrocket between 2014 and 2050, and it will quadruple. This is going to be helped by the abundance of fracked natural gas, as well as an increase in plastic production facilities. Next slide. Out of all of the production of plastic, packaging is the highest percentage. 36% is how much is used for packaging. This includes food packaging, bottles, bags, everything that packages our materials. This sector has expanded very rapidly with a shift from reusables to single-use throwaway items in the 50s and 60s. Next slide. These are also the top products that we're finding in cleanups. In 2017, the Ocean Conservancy, for the first time ever, showed that all top 10 items that were found on beach cleanups were not only plastic, but single-use plastic items. Next slide. So let's talk about recycling. Out of all of the plastic packaging waste that is produced, only 14% is actually recycled. So 40% is landfilled, 32% is leaked into the environment, and 14% is recycled. But next slide, just breaking that down a little further, 8% of that is downcycled, 4% is lost in the process, emissions, for example, and only 2% worldwide is effectively recycled into something of equal or higher value. Next slide. Much of what we have been calling recycling is actually being shipped to Asia. In 2018, China banned plastic waste importing. So many countries responded by shipping that plastic to countries like Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines, but a lot of those countries have started to refuse it as well. So we now have to face this problem at every level of government in the United States domestically. And over to you, Janice.
Next slide. So in addition to being a global concern, single-use plastic items such as straws, utensils, stirrers, etc., are also a local problem, as I'm sure most of you have seen. But there are lots of indirect costs to this. Litter discourages visitors, it impacts business development, and it results in lower property values. And where there is litter, research shows people are more likely to litter, so the problem compounds itself. Next slide. There are also direct costs. A 2013 study found that California cities spent at that time an average of $10.71 per resident to control litter. So in Vista, at today's population and $10.71 per resident, that's over $1 million that could be spent on other important programs in our city. In addition, in fiscal year 2020, Caltrans spent over $12.5 million on cleanup costs for District 11, which includes San Diego and Imperial counties. And again, this is money that could otherwise be used for highway improvements. Next slide, please. So cities in San Diego County have taken action. Many have enacted ordinances, but Oceanside's proposed model, which you see on the screen here, is one that we hope Vista might consider when the time is right. With the Oceanside ordinance, the first full year will include voluntary compliance, with the city providing support, education, outreach for businesses. Then in phase 2022, phase 2, which starts in 2022, polystyrene, otherwise known as styrofoam, will be prohibited. And in 2023, straws, utensils, etc., will be provided only upon request. So in addition to an extended implementation timeline, businesses experiencing hardships will be able to request waivers. We want to emphasize that we are extremely empathetic to the plight of business owners right now and always. But we believe that Oceanside's phased approach will give restaurants time to adjust and recover and rebuild before anything would be going into full implementation. Next slide. We also want to point out that restaurants actually should be able to save money by providing items only upon request. And by including this language in an ordinance, it puts all restaurants on a level playing field as far as customer expectations regarding service. In addition, businesses should be able to save money through reduced waste hauling fees and lower cleanup costs. And then finally, slide 5. These are some of our many dedicated community volunteers, including myself there holding a cup of straws, to make the point that constantly cleaning up after the debris has accumulated in our parks, on our streets, in the watershed is not the answer. We need to take action and adopt policies that will stop it before it ever enters the environment. And with that, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Ritter, council members, and Councilmember Contreras for inviting us to present tonight. That concludes the presentation part of our evening here.
If there are
Thank
questions,
you.
definitely take them.
So I think we have a couple speakers, and then I'll take questions from the council.
The first speaker is going to be Joe. Joe, if you want to go ahead, and you have 3 minutes to speak. If you state your last name, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Councilmember Contreras, thank you for moving this forward. My name is Joe Hood. I live in Vista. According to the California Innovation Index, published in December of 2020, we, California, are not on course to meet our 2030 or 2050 climate goals. We, quote, will have to massively increase reductions in greenhouse gas pollution across all sectors, according to the report. Emissions, in fact, in California increased 0.2% in 2020, despite the pandemic. To reach our 2030 goal, quote, California must lower its emissions by an average of 4.9% each year from 2020 to 2030. As oil consumption decreases, as it must, oil companies are looking for new markets and hence plan to increase production of plastic. Perhaps you remember the price of a barrel of oil hit $0 in April of 2020. A recent report estimates that for every 300 pounds of fish in the ocean, there are now 100 pounds of plastic. And at the current growth rates, by 2050, for every 300 pounds of fish, there will be 300 pounds of plastic in our oceans. Only 9% of all plastic has ever been recycled. By 2050, plastic production emissions will be equivalent to 295 new 500 megawatt coal-fired power plants, dashing our hopes of meeting climate goals. We must require bioplastics and other bio-based materials in the shift away from new non-renewable materials for packaging and products. Vista, as we've just seen, is polluted with plastic now. Please ban single-use plastics and develop and implement an aggressive climate action plan. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is David Bronner. Go ahead, David.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Ritter and Vista City Council members. I'm David Bronner, the Cosmic Engagement Officer, CEO for Dr. Bronners, a fifth-generation family-run business in California benefit corporation. Since 2008, Dr. Bronners has proudly manufactured our top-selling organic and fair trade soaps right here in Vista, and today we have over 300 employees and distribute our products around the world. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight and voice our support of the Vista City Council taking action on single-use plastics and reducing plastic waste and pollution in our community. Thanks too to Brady from Oceana and Janice from Surfrider for your important leadership protecting our precious oceans. Dr. Bronners is one of the largest consumer products manufacturing businesses in San Diego County, and we currently utilize massive quantities of plastic packaging to distribute our products to consumers around the world. Since 2003, we have sourced 100% post-consumer recycled PET plastic for most of our bottles. Using PCR plastic encourages recycling by building an end-of-life market for recycled material, and PET is widely recyclable. In addition, we have set business goals to send zero waste to the landfill, provide employee lunches in compostable paper or reusable containers, expand packaging options for our products that promote refill, develop more plastic-free packaging options for our products, support the Plastics-Free California Ballot Initiative, and consider pursuing plastic neutrality certification. And just side note that if you're going to use soap, bar soap is far and away the more ecological option than liquid soap, as much as I love our liquid soaps. Today, we urge the City Council to consider taking action on single-use plastics. We commit to working with you and the business community to support this action however we can. As a local business, we would like to see policies and infrastructure investments that would incentivize and support businesses moving away from single-use plastics, promote reuse options for packaging, and expand recycling and composting systems in Southern California and the U.S. Dr. Bronners was founded by my grandfather to spread the message of all one love and connection, including our connection with the earth. Today, we know that finding solutions to our planet's plastic solution crisis is a key issue of our time. We all have a role to play, and we are proud to be a business in Vista working on this issue. We look forward to working with the City Council and Mayor Ritter on actionable solutions for our Vista community and our precious oceans. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Gabrielle Clifford. Go ahead, Gabrielle.
Okay, am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Hello, good evening to you all. My name is Gabrielle Clifford, and I'm a small business owner and a resident of Vista. I want to comment in support of developing this ordinance to phase out single-use plastics. As others have noted, single-use plastics are the leading cause of plastic pollution, and they're a threat to both our health and the natural places we love. A single-use plastic ordinance is the most expedient, facile, and effective way of reducing the problem of plastic pollution. I believe that we owe it to our planet and to our future generations to enact this ordinance. And on a personal level, I grew up surfing the coasts of North County and picking plastic out of the water, storing it in my wetsuit and bringing it in to be disposed of properly. And I also grew up having to see dead sea life that had choked on discarded single-use plastic. I find this personally and professionally unconscionable, and I hope and work for the day that I don't have to see this anymore. It is an objective statement to say that we have not been good stewards of this planet, but it is something that is so very much within reach for us to enact as a community that I'm really surprised that this ordinance has not been enacted yet. I'm thrilled to hear that this is under consideration. There are many other places already doing this and leading the way. I believe this is an opportunity for us to likewise be leaders. And as a citizen, I will do everything I can to support the city and the community in moving this ordinance forward and moving us into a more sustainable future. Thank you for listening and for your time and consideration on this matter that I am very passionate about.
Thank you. Next is Josh Lupe. Go ahead, Josh.
Hello, my name is Josh Lupe. I am a Vista resident, and I would just like to speak in support of a single-use plastic ban. Just from my own personal perspective, where I live in Vista, we don't have street cleaning on a regular basis, and so I am literally picking up plastic trash off my street and out of my yard on a daily basis. And also, I would just like to speak to some of the more concerning parts about plastic waste in general. Microplastics have been found everywhere on this planet. And they've been found at the bottom of the ocean. They've been found in the Arctic, places far away from where normally we'd think about plastic trash. They're even found in the food and the food we eat and the water that we drink. So we can't even avoid ingesting microplastics on a daily basis, even if we're trying to live healthy lives. And also, I'm just concerned about the fact that also things like styrofoam contains, chemicals that are linked to cancer, vision and hearing loss. And so this is something that I see on a daily basis here in Vista, and it just has, significant health impacts for everybody involved. It doesn't really matter who you are. You can't get away from the negative health impacts that plastics and microplastics are going to take a toll on everyone. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is caller ending in 9338. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So my name's Katie Girard. I'm a Vista resident as well. I worked as a field marine researcher for over a decade, and I saw lots of plastic in the ocean and on the coastline, seeing birds, like I'd see pelicans off the coast here tangled in it, and you can't do anything about it because the pelican will win that fight if you try and untangle them. We'd see turtles wash up dead that you knew choked on plastic once we did the autopsies on them. It was really sad to see. There is 100 times more plastic in the ocean today than 10 years ago, and it's just increasing at an exponential rate. And so to me, it's kind of like when Josh said that microplastics are found pretty much everywhere on Earth now. It's kind of like DDT, and how we saw DDT throughout the ecosystem and realized we had to ban it. And plastic is like that, except it's getting way out of hand. And so we really need to do something about this now before it just keeps getting out of control. Like you said, we can't, no matter how much you try to avoid it, you can eat just plants that you grow and there's still going to be microplastics in it. A study showed that the average American adult consumes almost 150 pieces of microplastic a day, and they inhale over 130 pieces of microplastic a day, which is a lot of plastic to be inhaling. Also, in 1986, the EPA released a report that the production of polystyrene is one of the 5th largest creators of hazardous waste. And if we're making more of that now, it's probably an even greater creator of hazardous waste. And there's nothing you can really do with this stuff after. So where are we going to keep storing all this hazardous chemicals? Like, it's single use, but it's going to last forever. It's going to outlast all of us. So I would just like to support any sort of plastic ban and reduction that we can do, because I think we really need to start working to fix this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Nancy O'Shell. Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, and thank you, Brady and Janice, for that wonderful presentation. My name is Nancy Oshley, and I'm a member of VCAP, which is the Vista Climate Action Planners. And this proposed ordinance, I believe, would fit in beautifully to our CAP that is currently being updated. So I encourage the council to please include this in their CAP before they finalize it. In addition, I'd also just like to point out that EDCO just recently put out a newsletter item that starting in March, they're going to be able to start using food scraps in your yard waste bin to go into their digester. And that also includes soiled paper products. like paper plates and paper napkins. And so for restaurants, that could also probably include, I would imagine, the biodegradable, more cardboard type containers. So that might also be part of the education going forward to restaurants, why this is such a good idea. So anyway, thank you. And please consider this ordinance.
Thank you. Next is Cliff Kaiser. Go ahead, Cliff.
Greetings, Mayor Ritter and Council. I'm always not in favor of government interaction with the public and their restrictions of what they do. Plastics may be a concern. Perhaps the solution is already in place to collect that stuff if it enters the ocean with larger collection systems. You know, whether fish die or whatever, you know, fish die for whatever reasons. And marine life die for whatever reasons. We can't prevent that. And so what we're asking for is an ordinance that causes the cost of the Vista consumer to go up for a solution that can be solved otherwise. You know, one of the other previous members or residents mentioned about DDT as an example. Well, DDT was banned in a lot of areas and it caused an increase in malaria. So they solved the problem of the counter effects of DDT, but the after effect was that more people died. So I think that let us solve the solution if it is really a problem of plastics in the ocean by collecting plastics instead of people and the free enterprise from what they do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Nancy Jones. Go ahead, Nancy.
Kathy, is this working?
You are on, Nancy. Go ahead.
Ooh, awesome. Then I'll turn off my phone. Sometimes it doesn't cooperate. Is it loud enough?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening. It's so good to see all of you and our new council members as well. I'm Nancy B. Jones. I'm a 35-year Vista resident. Thanks to Janice and Brady. And I'm so glad I have those slides so I can refer back to them again. I'm here to talk about a wonderful group that works right here in Vista. It's called Only Losers Litter. Karina knows, Joe knows. They have participated. We started trash cleanups in Vista in January of 2017. So we will be starting our 5th year when we meet on January 24th. So in these 4 years, 1,000 people, well, sometimes repeats, of course, have participated, giving 1,500 hours of volunteer service. So Sarah Spinks started picking up trash on the walk to school, and Alexis Panchev joined her to start a great community service project that has staying power even during the pandemic. Okay. The Women's Club of Vista supports Only Losers Litter, and I keep track of attendance and I send out reminder notices. We call ourselves Caped Community Crusaders, and with our pickers and buckets, we clean up around town every month. We come to parking lots, sidewalks, parks, the creek, and strip malls, and they've all been targets for our efforts. We have filled dumpsters over and over. So one of the slides in Janice's presentation was behind Fraser Farms, and I don't know where it started, but we filled that thing. Our volunteers include seniors, adults, kids, scouts, and high school students who are earning their community service hours that teachers require. Character leaders and California Scholarship Federation kids from Vista High have been really good supporters lately. They love to get out during the pandemic. So what do we pick up? All that stuff that Brady and Janice were showing us. Straws, cigarette butts, napkins, plastic forks, newspapers, plastic water bottles, glass containers, aluminum cans, and oh yes, the random couch. That was interesting. Tire, shoes, discarded clothing, and bags of doggy droppings. Yeah. The worst trash right now is styrofoam takeout containers. Yes, we've had more takeout during the pandemic, and some restaurants have switched to paper compostable containers. But gee, wouldn't it be a great idea to put your takeout containers into a trash can? The trash that only losers litter picks up will not go into the storm drains and into the ocean, so we're helping keep the ocean clean. There's always trash to be picked up, and our Only Losers Litter Crusaders are doing their best to help out. So thank you, Janice, for asking me to speak up. Thank you.
Nancy. Next is Jimmy Lindeman. Go ahead, Jimmy. Are you there, Jimmy? If you want to unmute there you go.
My name is Jimmy Lindeman. I'm a Vista resident. I favor the reduction of single-use plastics, but I support the recommendation earlier from the speaker from Dr. Bronners that any ordinance through the city should incentivize businesses to take this action instead of being an ordinance that's directed to punish these businesses that are currently going through hard times. I know we, at the beginning of this meeting, think that in 2022, a lot of these businesses should have recovered, but going through almost 12 months of not being able to operate is not a reasonable amount of time to expect a small business that has had to lay off staff or has had to furlough staff to be able to make a significant economic recovery and to be able to completely change their business model. Any ordinance that we do propose through the city must include stricter and tougher enforcement on our citizens that think that it is okay to throw this trash in a place other than a recycle bin or a receptacle. This is not just true for those that are fortunate, but unfortunately those that are also homeless. I have seen throughout our city, through historic Vista, through various areas, homeless individuals rummaging through trash cans and indiscriminately throwing trash out of the trash can onto the streets. So to punish just the small businesses or the businesses in general with single-use plastic use without having repercussions on us as citizens that have a due diligence to each other to keep our city clean is unfair and unreasonable, because that may be a Vista ban, but we have San Marcos right next to us. We have Escondido. We're still going to get single-use plastics, and it's going to end up in our trash, and it's going to end up on our street if we allow people to continue to litter without there being strong enforcement. Thank you very much. Jimmy Lindeman.
Thank you. Next is Mandy Mae Fitzgerald. Go ahead, Amanda.
Hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you for listening to my comments tonight. I appreciate it. I am a 10-year resident of Vista. I am also a business owner of 3 years, Wild at Heart Botanicals. And part of my business model, I built into my business model to reduce plastic. I try and use it as little as possible, and it's really hard to avoid. I was fortunate to attend the Natural Product Expo in 2019, and there are alternatives out there for us business owners. There are plastics that we can use as alternatives that will degrade within 90 days. We just have to choose to make that change. So I am speaking in support of reducing one-use plastic, and I appreciate you letting me speak. Thank you. And I'm sorry, one more thing. We are talking about developing a plan here. Nothing's been developed yet, and we all have a voice in that. So it is time for change. The statistics show that we need to get rid of plastic. We have options, and I think we all need to see what we can do about it. So thank you. And thanks to everybody who's speaking up tonight and listening.
Thank you. All right, next is Pierre Romano. Go ahead, Pierre.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pierre Romano, and I'm one of the board members at South Vista Communities. And appreciate the time to speak. Thank you, Brady and Janice, for your presentation. And from South Vista Communities, we strongly encourage the City of Vista to phase out single-use plastic products post-COVID-19. We've been hearing over and over from everyone how important this is, how toxic the single-use plastics are, broken down into microplastics that are highly toxic to our health and the environment. And we also know that there's no way that cleanup and recycling can keep pace with the amount of plastic being produced and then immediately thrown away. And we've been seeing this over and over in our streets and highways during the pandemic. And because of the leadership of more than 100 cities in California, we know that there is sensible plastic reduction policies that we can implement. And we pledge at South Vista Communities to work with you, the Vista City Council members, to develop and pass at the appropriate time municipal policies phasing out single-use plastic with fairness to local businesses and an ambitious implementation timeline. Appreciate very much this opportunity to speak, and thank you for your attention to this increasingly urgent matter.
Thank you. Okay, that completes the public comments on this item. So we'll go ahead and close the opportunity to provide comment at this time.
Okay, thank you to Brady and Janice. We appreciate your presentation. And does the council have any comments? Okay, Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Janice, for calling earlier today and reaching out and kind of answering all my questions about single-use plastics and oceanside ordinances and upcoming federal laws that are in the process and all that good stuff. There obviously is a problem with single-use plastics. Not only your presentation shows it, but I think one of the callers said there's 100 times more plastic waste now than there was 10 years ago. And to think about that, 100 times more of a type of particular waste than 10 years ago, that's obviously a problem and we're not doing enough to combat it. I feel like we're a little bit behind the curve on this as a city, seeing that Carlsbad, San Marcos, Escondido, and Oceanside have already brought forward ordinances to implement. I know that it's not required by the state or by the feds yet, but it's definitely coming. And I would always rather prefer to be at the tip of the spear. So I appreciate Councilwoman Contreras bringing this forward. I appreciate all the information that Janice gave me today. I was really worried about the restrictions that would put on businesses, especially with the COVID crisis that we're in right now. So knowing that we don't want to start implementation until after the COVID crisis is up, and then giving a year or so of voluntary compliance, allowing businesses to apply for waivers. We could even implement a type of grant program if we had to for struggling programs. This really is an ordinance that our entire city, our business community, and council can be a part of, and it's something that we need to do. I remember when straws on request came forward, nobody wanted to do it and they were all scared. But hey, if I want a straw, I can ask for it and it's just fine, and it's helping. So, we've done some stuff in California, but I do think as a city, we should look at Oceanside ordinance and also the other ordinances that are being drawn up within the cities and make sure that we do our part here for our community and for our ocean, man. I love jumping on a boogie board like the next guy and holding on for my dear life. So thank you, Brady, and thank you, Janice. And again, thank you, Karina. I look forward to making something happen for our community in the future.
So do I have any other comments from Karina? Councilmember Contreras.
Yes, thank you so much to Brady and to Janice and everybody involved in speaking up today. Your comments are very important to your local government. as Deputy Mayor Green stated, we wouldn't be the first city along the 78 corridor to enact something if we were to move forward as a council to discuss what should be done at a municipal code and ordinance level. So I look forward to continuing to have a discussion and to craft something that our residents will be proud of and our businesses will be able to support. And I don't think it's very far-fetched that we'll be able to do that. I just want to say, I have hosted a weekly trash cleanup on Wednesdays. We start at Luz Duran Park and we walk and pick up trash for about 2 hours. With the pandemic, we haven't been able to be as active. And there's been a noticeable difference in the amount of trash that I'm seeing along our little routes that we used to take. So something has to be done and something can be done. And together we can really come together as a city behind an ordinance that will allow us to see reduction in pollution, plastic pollution here in our city and in the coast, because we have to remember we are an important part of the watershed. And a lot of what happens here in Vista flows out to the ocean. So we want to be cognizant of where we sit in our ecosystem and how that can impact our local habitats. So we can be part of the solution. And I think it's time that we move forward as a council and discuss what that solution looks like. So I do look forward to continuing this discussion. And thank you so much to everybody. We'll do something about it.
Thank you. How about anybody else? Seeing nobody else? Oh,
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Franklin.
I just want to thank the presenters also for the presentation. I think we're all very concerned about reducing litter in our community. Especially appreciate those who are dedicated pollution control experts. We need the volunteers to supplement our city's efforts to collect and mitigate pollution. I think we're all very disappointed with the state of litter in our city and in our state. I've suggested before, and I'll suggest again, I do think we need to conduct some targeted enforcement operations. At minimum, anybody who's throwing trash out of their car deserves the $1,000 fine, in my opinion. I'd love to see us issue some of those fines. I have never thrown anything out of my car, and I cannot imagine what would cross somebody's mind to make them want to trash our community in that way. But those of us who are stopping and looking for it, and I know those of us on the council have our eyes open and we're looking at the state of pollution in our city. It is pretty unfortunate that some people still think that's an acceptable mode of behavior. So, I agree we need to look at efforts to reduce pollution in water, on land, and everywhere. So I join you in your sentiments. I appreciate you taking the time to speak up to us tonight.
With that, I just don't see anybody else waving. Oh.
Quick comment. Thank you so much to the presenters. Yes, thank you so much to the presenters. Just want to say a quick thank you for all your information, and that I agree, right? I'm a big believer in taking responsibility where we can, right? Whether that's increased enforcement, I see it too, right? People will, be eating their lunch and then leave the trash, very sly out the door and then drive off, right? I was like, I saw you. You're not hiding that from anyone, right? So there's lots of measures that we can take to improve this. I think that this is a great direction to go, especially since, we see surrounding cities also taking responsibility. So we want to be part of that change too. So thank you, everyone. I'm really looking forward to a discussion and, bring this forward for an actual vote.
Good discussion, Brady and Janice. We appreciate you bringing all the information and all the speakers. And we appreciate and I'm sure we'll get back to this and talk about it, an ordinance at a later date. We can't do it today, but we'll do it at another time. So thank you for coming and bringing that to our attention. We appreciate it. So with that.
No, thank you so much for the time, Mayor Ritter. Really appreciate it.
Very welcome. So with that, I think we will move on. Councilmember Green, did you want to say something or just waving? Just waving. Okay, got it. Okay. She's waving. All right. So with that, we will move on to our consent calendar. The recommendations on the following consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public can remove an item by using the raise hand feature or by pressing *9 now. The items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. And this evening we have 11 consent items. So with that, would any of the council members want to remove an item from the consent calendar? So,
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Franklin.
I make a motion that we adopt the consent calendar.
Okay, do I have a second on that motion? Councilmember Contreras. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any speakers, public speakers on the consent calendar?
We do not.
Okay, with that, we have a motion and a second. And so then let's cast our votes.
All right, please state your vote when I call your name. Councilmember Melendez.
Aye.
Councilmember Contreras.
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Green.
Aye.
Mayor Ritter.
Aye.
Consent calendar passes unanimously.
Okay, that moves us to our discussion items. And we have actually two discussion items this evening. The first one is the 2021 through 2029 housing element update. City Planner Patsy Chow will provide the staff report. If any members of the public wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise hand feature or by pressing *9 now. The speakers will be called upon after the staff presentation. So with that, I will call upon Patsy Chow.
Good evening, Mayor Ritter, council members. Patsy Chow, I'm the Deputy Director of Community Development Department, City Planner. First off, just wanted to say wish everyone a happy new year. We're embarking on this new year, and I'm happy to be here tonight to present to you this Housing Element 6 cycle update discussion. And I don't know if we have, Kathy, we have our PowerPoint on. Here we go. All right, thank you so much. Next slide, please. So we've been here before, the staff has been here before City Council. The purpose of the meeting tonight is to get direction from the City Council and to receive public input on the draft housing element document. Like I mentioned, we were before City Council last November 10th, starting the discussion with the City Council, getting public input. And subsequent to that, on December 15th, we went before the Planning Commission. We took the discussion before them as well as the draft housing element. We've received a lot of positive comments and they were pleased with the content and quality of the draft housing element. And also pleased, just like the City Council was on November, with the fact that we are not having to do any general plan amendments and rezones in order to accommodate our arena. So today I'm going to repeat some of the things that we've talked about in November for the benefit of the public and those that are actually viewing this for the first time, so we can bring everybody on the same page. I'm going to discuss a little bit about the arena numbers again, and also the fact that the main component, obviously, of the update is to receive public comments. So we did a mailing e-blast to all the stakeholders, organizations, close to 50 of them, every single time we're meeting to make sure everybody's aware of all these meetings that were taking place. We did postings on the website, media releases, and social media through Twitter, Facebook, and Nextdoor to make sure that the word gets out there. I would like to take the opportunity to reintroduce the housing element team, if I could please. We have Veronica Tam from VTA Planning. She helped us out last time in our last update, and she's here tonight as well. We have Brenna Weatherby from Rincon Consultants, and we're happy to have her here too as part of our team as well. John Conley, obviously our fearless leader, our Director of Community Development Engineering, and we have Michael Ressler, our Principal Planner, also assisting greatly with this effort on the housing element update. So we're happy to have everybody here tonight. Next slide, please. So one of the things that it's a little bit of a repeat from prior meeting in November is, but just as a refresher, the housing element is one of the vital elements or vital issues in the state of California. And so as a statewide concern, we have to have it reviewed, obviously, by the State Department of Housing and Community Development Department, make sure that we're all in compliance with the state law. The housing element is one of the 7 state mandated elements in the general plan, with the main purposes as stated on this slide as to provide assessment of both current and future housing needs, to make sure that we identify all the constraints and opportunities for meeting these housing needs, and to provide a strategy, obviously, that is going to help establish goals related to housing provisions, policies, and programs in our community. Next slide, please. So you've received, along with the staff report, a 173-page document. It's quite long and extensive. I am definitely not going to go every single page of it. We'll be here way past the hours. My goal tonight here is really to kind of go over the main components of the housing element, which is on this slide, is to really identify and make a note of the fact that we are covering from community profile, demographics, talking about our community in terms of what we have in terms of the housing stock. We definitely need to identify in the housing element what are the constraints for provision of housing in our community when it comes to the market constraints, whether it's a governmental constraint or an environmental related constraint. In the housing element, we also identify our resources that are available in order to meet our RHNA numbers and future housing needs. And the downtown area districts, as we discussed before, and I'll show it on a map again this time, is helping us actually meet a lot of our needs in terms of the lower moderate income housing RHNA number allocation. And last but not least, we have our housing plan, which is an 8-year plan, which identifies all the actions and objectives that are necessary in order to address housing needs in our community. There's close to 20 housing programs that we identified in the draft housing element, from reach out programs, equitable opportunities for employment, for housing, and it goes into a whole list of different programs that are available as part of our housing element. Next slide, please. So looking to the 2013-2021 RHNA numbers, just to compare it in terms of what we are looking at for 2021-2029 RHNA numbers, we had a total allocation for the last cycle of 1,374 units. So you've seen an increase here for this upcoming cycle of 2,561 units. There has been a great increase in terms of the above moderate category because of the allocation, the calculations happening during a time when there is a housing boom, and also the fact that there is a lot of legislation out there wanting us to look at overcrowding issues in our community or just generally in the region. So that obviously caused an impact in the growth of the numbers. The one thing about the fact that we have to look at county average as well as our average in terms of how much of lower income households we have in our community. It's called an impaction correction. So if our average is higher than the county average, then we, in terms of lower income households, we will get a greater allocation of above moderate housing units, basically to compensate for that, and so that there is a more equal spread of the different income levels throughout the region, so that there is not a concentration on any one community, but we're looking at the income levels and therefore trying to create a more equitable distribution throughout the area. Next slide, please. You've seen this chart before, and there's a lot of numbers here. I love numbers, but I realize not everybody may like numbers. So what I'm going to try to do is, as I did last time, you see across the top, it's our RHNA allocation numbers, our needs assessment for the various income categories, and with a total at the end of 2,561 units. What we do over the chart here, over the areas identified in kind of in that creamy color, pending projects, ADU units, is that we can use all of these, the projects, the ADU units, vacant parcels, and underutilized parcels in our downtown area in order to meet our RHNA numbers. So really, if you're looking at the bottom of this matrix, this chart, is that we have a total of units provided, that we sum up all these different categories that are in that cream color. And then we look at our RHNA allocation numbers, and then we can realize how much do we still need, or if we actually have a surplus. In our case, which is great, We're in good shape in terms of the fact that if you look at the very low at the bottom at that salmon colored or kind of orangey color, we have a total of surplus of 122 for very low category, 187 surplus in the low category, and 206 in the moderate category. We do, however, have a deficiency of 187 in the above moderate category. However, we can actually make that up by the overage in the moderate category. So it's good that we have a surplus and we have a little buffer, which is what HCDs expect us to do. And so overall, what we have in our books is enough in terms of zoning, general plan designations in order to meet the RENA numbers. And that's the big news, the positive big news with all this, the effort that we're doing. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we have a picture map of our vacant sites, the red areas identified on this map, where we can utilize these areas for meeting our RENA numbers. So this map has not changed from the last time that you saw it in November, is the same one. And next slide, please. This map also is the same, no changes to this vacant underutilized sites in the downtown Vista specific planning area, which I mentioned before is helping actually us meet the great majority of our allocation needs in the lower moderate income categories as identified on this map. Next slide, please. We have the planned and approved pending projects that HCD basically allows us to utilize projects that were approved or pending, not in construction, but approved and pending as of June 30 of 2020, that we can actually account for these projects to meet our RENA numbers, which is great. And the whole expectation is that in the 8-year cycle, that we're going to be able to see these projects built. And that's why we can take advantage of these projects and count them towards our RENA allocation. Next slide, please. So again, the big news and the positive news with all of this is, again, that I keep repeating this, but it is pretty important, is the fact that we don't need general plan amendments. We don't need rezones, are not necessary in order to accommodate our RENA allocation for the 6th cycle. And that's a pretty big and pretty important factor that I keep mentioning that, I know, but it's actually pretty, it's nice and exciting to know that we don't need to change what we have in order to meet our obligations. After we met in November and before we went to the Planning Commission, we met with state HCD staff to kind of go over our proposed sites inventory on November 23rd. And we did not hear, thankfully, any major concerns that they had or issues that were identified during that discussion with state HCD staff. So that gave us a good feel to try to gauge, in terms of them looking at our inventory, if they saw major flaws or concerns. And that did not come out in our discussion. They obviously asked a lot of questions about how we addressed some of the sites and how we arrived at some of the sites, but it was a good discussion. It was a positive feedback. And so I'm glad to report that at least we've gotten some preliminary feedback from state HCD. Next slide, please. So again, in terms of our housing element objectives, we are trying to provide adequate planning, obviously, to accommodate housing needs for all of the social economic segments of our community, and assisting development of housing that's affordable to lower, moderate income households, making sure that we are addressing governmental barriers and removing them in terms of allowing affordable housing development in our community, and helping preserve and improve the existing housing stock, the existing affordable housing that we currently have, and promote, where it's appropriate, where the density is appropriate as well. And last but not least, ensuring equal opportunities and housing opportunities for all. Those are the main objectives of our housing element. And next slide. So tonight, we're seeking input from the City Council on our draft housing element, as we did from the Planning Commission in December. And after tonight, our hope is that we go on to the next step, which would be basically submitting our draft housing element to state HCD for their preliminary review, and keep our fingers crossed for preliminary approval. And subsequent to that, we'll be coming back to the Planning Commission and City Council for actual adoption hearings and decision-making at that point, which would be around April. And that would give us the ability to have the adoption and meeting the deadline to have an adopted housing element by April 15th of this year. So moving fast forward, that's what we have in mind, and that's the end goal of this process. And again, I believe that's the next slide is really to basically, again, summarize the fact that we don't need general plan amendments, we don't need rezones. We are, again, seeking direction tonight from the City Council and members of the public that wish to speak on this item and give us some feedback in terms of our draft housing element. I am available for questions. The remaining team in the housing element team is also available here. And really thank you for your attention, and I'm all ears. So thank you very much. And I think the next slide is basically asking for comments and suggestions and questions from the council. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I see Councilmember Green has questions or comments. Do we have speakers, Kath? Where's the city clerk? I'm looking for a picture. City clerk, do we have any speakers?
Yes, we have a few speakers.
Okay, do you want to do questions first, or you want to hear speakers first, everybody? Okay, I'll say speakers first and then shake your heads yes or no. Speakers first, okay. Shaking, okay, we'll do speakers first.
Okay, first speaker is going to be Barbara Gordon. Go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I am the adult advisor for a Hispanic youth group with many living in multi-unit housing. I am concerned with the amount of unprotected exposure to secondhand tobacco and marijuana smoke in their homes, where they are spending most of their time, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. In the multi-unit apartment buildings, the secondhand smoke drifts from one unit into the surrounding units through windows, ventilation systems, plumbing, and electrical outlets. I would ask you to consider prohibiting smoking in multi-unit housing as a priority. Exposure to secondhand smoke causes an estimate of 41,000 deaths each year. I am concerned some populations can be disproportionately affected by tobacco and marijuana secondhand smoke exposure and are more likely to suffer from disease or death from tobacco use. Potential contributing factors include low socioeconomic status, lack of cessation service, lower level of education, and inadequate insurance company. Is supporting policies that favor smoke-free environments and eliminate secondhand tobacco and marijuana smoke will improve the quality of life and encourage healthy living. I am grateful for your consideration on this relevant and important issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is Jim Ringenbach. Go ahead, Jim.
Hi, thanks. I'm going to save my comment for an email. I'll just email everybody. Thanks anyway.
Okay, thank you. And the next is Cliff Kaiser. Go ahead, Cliff.
Hi. So I think that the effort to lost my train of thought. Forgive me. I'm looking for the agenda item. Okay, so the housing element. So we have plenty of low-income housing already in place in the city of Vista, perhaps too much. We don't need any more. What we need is to have a plan to take the low-income housing that is overwhelming right now and replace it with better housing. The South Vista communities is a very nice place. The North Vista communities, for the most part, are pretty low income. And so I think we need to replace that with, upping the level a bit. We don't need to have more low or affordable income housing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jim raised his hand again, so let's see. Jim, did you change your mind?
Yeah, I changed my mind. Is that all right?
Yep, no problem. Go ahead.
I thank the last caller for motivating me. So I'm concerned, maybe just confused because it's a complicated issue, that the income levels used for the RHNA allocation are not congruent with the income amounts that are used to categorize household income levels. For example, a household of 4 to be included in the highest category of income levels, called above moderate, that household of 4 needs to have an income of about $137,000. To be included in the next level down, called moderate, that household needs household of 4 needs to make about $93,000. I'm getting these numbers from the California State Department of Housing and Community Development, which uses 5 income level categories. However, it looks like in the Vista element, you're only designating 4 income level categories. So the 2 levels that I just described are grouped together. So for a household to be classified in Vista's highest income category, a household of 4 needs to make just $93,000. Can a household of 4 with an income of $93,000 really afford housing in the highest level of the RHNA designation? In short, I'm concerned that because the incomes used for the RHNA allocation are not congruent with incomes used to designate household income, households in the upper levels can't actually get housing in the upper levels of the housing stock. So in reality, they are pushed down into the lower categories of housing stock, which pushes households in the next level of income down to a lower level of housing stock, and so on. So households at the bottom level of income get pushed out. Are the needs of housing stock at the highest levels overinflated, which will end up leaving our families at the lowest income levels unable to afford housing, thus pushing them out or into overcrowding or into homelessness? Thank you. Oh, there's also a chart about homelessness in the housing element, and it shows that Vista has 100 homeless people, I guess, half sheltered, half unsheltered. And San Marcos, I believe, shows 8. And so I'm hoping council members can look into what is going on in San Marcos, that they only have 8 homeless people in their city. Anyway, that's my point. I'll shoot an email too, because it's complicated. Visuals would help, but thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, there's nobody else with their hand raised. We'll go ahead and close the opportunity to provide public comment on this item.
Okay, then we'll go for the council if they have any questions. Councilmember Green, Deputy Mayor Green.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have questions, so hope we are ready. My first question stems from Mr. Riggenbach's question is, don't we use the same income levels for classifying our RHNA designations as RHNA requires, or do we, because I thought that we had this 4 levels broken up and the income classifications were the same. We don't change those in Vista, right?
No, we're following, as we have the very low, extremely low, moderate, above moderate. It's basically the same as we are requested or required to follow from the state's requirements as far as area medium income. So for instance, like the very low or the extremely low starting at that is 0 to 30% of the area medium income. So it's not like it changes, as we please, I guess. We have to follow what the state's telling us.
Okay, cool. No, that was something I didn't have as a question, but I figured I'd ask it before we started. So number one, great job on the report. I know that fitting all of these units into our city to try to be in compliance with these numbers must have been tough, knowing that over the last 8-year period, we only had to zone for 1,374 units. And over this 8-year period, we have to zone for 2,561 units is unbelievable. I mean, it's almost twice as many as we had to zone for over the last 8-year period. So we definitely have people moving to our area and a big need for housing. So number one, that's that. It's 1,187 more units. And the first question that I had, and I think you touched on it a little bit, is the most disproportionate increase that I saw was the above moderate allocation. Over the first 8-year period, it was 530 units. And over this 8-year period, it's 1,356 units. And I think in explaining that, what you said is that they look at all of the previous allocations, they look at what we built and what we provided, and that if we've already provided a bunch of affordable units, they require we build more above moderate units so that there's not a high densification of affordable units in one particular community. Is that correct?
That's true. That's clear. And I just wanted to add one more thing to that is the fact that when I was mentioning that we have to look at our average compared to the county average. And if our average of lower income households is higher, they basically they realize the fact that then we should get more above moderate units allocated to us so that it creates this kind of equal spread throughout. So it's not an over concentration basically. But back to what you were saying, kind of piggyback on what you were saying.
Yeah, and as far as right now goes, I mean, what that means is that when the county looks at our city, they see that we have a pretty high percentage of low-income people utilizing what I would consider our affordable housing within our city in comparison to the other places in the city. So when it comes down to affordable housing, we've actually met the need, not only numbers-wise, but also median income-wise. When you look at all of the numbers of it, we've really provided good affordable housing is what it looks like for the numbers, right?
Sure, I would agree with that. And again, you know, we're doing what we can, and obviously, with the new RHNA numbers coming up for the next cycle, everybody or the county or state HCD at how the numbers were distributed, they realize again that we got to have a more equitable distribution. So again, not an over concentration on the lower end of a very low or low income, but also giving us more above moderate. So anyhow.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of speaking to, you know, what Cliff Kaiser said, he said that, you know, we already have a lot of affordable housing. And I think that's kind of what the RHNA designator saw, is that we built a lot in the past and we have a very high percentage of income, you know, very low income within our city. And we're trying to get more, you know, different types of income per se in our city, which is why they said we have to build those above moderate units. And it looks like we have the highest surplus even in this 8-year period. We've zoned for more affordable units than they've even required of us. Is that correct?
That's true. We have a little surplus, a little buffer and cushion on the very low, even the moderate categories. And that provides us with that cushion that we need in case we end up shifting and developing some of these sites for more above moderate. We have to have a buffer, in other words, because otherwise if we rely to be right exact on the need and the number they give us, we could get ourselves into a little bit of a trouble. But in our case, we do have the surpluses numbers, and it allows us to move around and helping us meet what's called a no net loss that the state's asking us to do.
Okay. And I wasn't even sure of why municipalities built houses, why, you know, high densities were built, why affordables were built. Before I was elected, I had no clue about this RHNA designation and how they allocate these houses. So it was super interesting to me. And I spoke with John Conley as well about, you know, why we have additional, you know, affordable units right now. And what he said is we may have to do some incentives for affordable units in the future if we build moderate or above moderate units on what we have designated as affordable sites right now. And this is something we look at every year, right? So like every year we kind of just make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do. So if it looks like next year we've eaten up a lot of the affordable housing numbers, we'll have another opportunity to add. If we need to build any particular area, you're going to kind of coach us on as a council to make sure we're in compliance, right?
Correct. And we're hoping to do actually a map that's going to help us track all of this. So as by year, when we do annual reports to state and they tell us and see us how we are progressing on these numbers on a yearly basis, our plan is to actually have a map that shows all of these sites so we can keep good track of what we're doing and not doing or progressing in the right direction. That way we know that we're not going to be surprised at the end of the 8 year and go like, oh, wow, we didn't do what we're supposed to do. But every year we're going to be doing, milestones basically to meet those needs.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, I know you kept stressing the RENA compliance and things like that, and you know, being in compliance allows us to maintain local control over every single project, and every one of these projects, even if they come in, we still get a lot of local control on. So, number one, I appreciate the report. I just had a lot of questions. It's very confusing. I'm super glad that we were able to meet all of our numbers, and you know, I'm super satisfied with the report. So, thank you so much. I'll open it up to the rest of the council.
Thank you.
Okay, and I just one more thing, the RENA numbers, I wanted to say they're much more equitable this time, because in the past, when they gave us our numbers, they didn't take into consideration that we already had some low income housing, and a lot of the cities are not happy. The coastal cities like Solana Beach and Sanitas going on down, Del Mar has a hard time. All of them getting their really low income housing. They have a hard time building it because the land is so expensive down there. So they're not really happy with their numbers. And so, but they did a much more equitable way of giving us the numbers this time, I thought. So I think that it's much better than it was in the past. So Councilmember Melendez.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful. I know that staff worked really hard on this, making sure, right, that we're kind of looking at all the opportunities to meet these numbers, right, and be in compliance in a way that is going to be, you know, equitable throughout our community. You know, especially when we really break down, you know, what does it mean for someone to live in a place that they can afford, right? That depends on the person. It depends on the family, right? Some families, you know, are going to be able to afford within those moderate income levels, and some people are going to require a lower income housing, right? And so being able to look at the needs of our community and develop a housing plan that's going to fit everybody's needs, right? Not that there's all this low income housing and there's all this, you know, high income housing. It's really based on what the community needs, right? So I'm glad that we're looking throughout Vista for these opportunities, and that we didn't even necessarily need to rezone in order to meet those numbers. But I did have a couple of questions. So this is a guiding document for 8 years, correct?
Correct. It's the 2021-2029 cycle, correct.
Okay. And then what is the mechanism for, or is there a mechanism for ensuring that these units are built, right? So these are sorry, my dog's coming over here. These are some allocations for these units, right? So these are allocations through zoning for specific units and uses. But what is the mechanism ensuring that these units are built, and what does that look like going forward, right? Now that we have this allocation, if we were to approve this draft, what's the mechanism to ensure that not only is the allocation there, right, which is in this document, but the mechanism that allows these projects to be developed in the first place?
So right now, Councilmember Melendez, this being a planning document as part of our general plan, it allows us to plan and make sure that we have the proper zoning, general plan wise, land use zoning to accommodate the RENA numbers. However, state HCD at this point is not requiring us to build these units, not yet anyways, and that could change. Obviously, who knows, in a year, 2 years, in the next cycle, who knows? But the point is, at this point in time, it is a planning document, much like our general plan. It tells us the blueprint of what we are expected to do, and give us the ability to plan appropriately for it. However, the requirement to have these all built, the 2,561 done within the 8 year, is not there. But obviously, our goal is to achieve that. However, we don't control a lot of these factors and developers and nonprofit organizations, but that's the planning expectation to achieve that, basically.
Right. Yes, definitely understand. Wanting to kind of differentiate between the purpose of this document, right, and you know, wanting to do everything that we can do. So it's good to know that we're meeting our obligations, right, by allocating the appropriate units, be it low income to moderate, right, to above moderate. We're allocating for all of that, which is required by us, by the state. My interest is ensuring, right, that these units are built in a sustainable way, right, that's actually going to continue to meet the needs as our community grows. right? This has already been referenced that our community is continuing to grow. And one of the mechanisms for ensuring that affordable units are built is through inclusionary housing requirements. So I did want to bring that up as a tool to be potentially included, and that would be my direction and my feedback to staff. Is looking at inclusionary housing requirements either through this document or through a separate process that would allow us to continue to, anytime a project comes before the city, that there is a built-in affordable component. So that would accomplish a couple of goals, right? It would allow us to not only allocate space for those affordable units through this inclusionary housing requirement, but it would also ensure that any time that these projects are built, that they are including inclusionary housing, they're including affordable units. And then also, I know that there's been a stress on, equitable distribution and integrated housing, not making sure that just not, one part of Vista has affordable housing and the other part has market rate housing, but an integrated approach to housing. And I believe that inclusionary housing requirements can help us accomplish that. And I really want to make sure that we're ahead of the curve on this. Other cities around us, most of them have implemented a policy like this. And we actually have in the past had inclusionary housing requirements. So, that's just something that we can continue to use, or we could include in this housing element to ensure that those units not only are allocated for, but actually functionally are being produced in our city. So those are my comments. I'm happy to hear any more info from staff and from my other colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, do I hear anything from Councilmember Contreras or Councilmember Franklin? Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, sure. I want to thank staff for all their due diligence and, meeting and exceeding some of the expectations that have been put upon our city by the state. I do, in the past, when we have discussed certain strategies to reduce homelessness, I've always been a proponent for inclusionary housing. I believe at some point the state is going to force that upon cities. But I do still advocate for inclusionary housing as a way to ensure that we are continuing to meet the needs of the community. I think Councilmember Melendez had some really good points as to why that would be advantageous as a tool to include in our housing element. However, I do understand that this is a topic that we have discussed as a council, and I'm not sure if there's been a change of heart with any of my colleagues, but that is something that I personally, as a member of this council, am interested in including in our housing element. So those are my only comments. And again, thank you so much for all. I know it's a lot of hard work that goes into ensuring that we're counting every single little piece of property, every single little house, and the fact that we have been able as a city, because of the due diligence of our staff, to meet and exceed some of these requirements is great, because as Deputy Mayor Green stated, it does allow us to have more local control, and we are seeing some of our coastal cities not too happy because they haven't, been meeting their goals. So thank you.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yeah, just a quick note on inclusionary housing from those of us who were involved in the discussion when we eliminated the policy. The reason that the vote prevailed at the time to eliminate the policy was the fact that the state of California at the time and still presently does provide a density bonus to developers in multifamily housing who include low-income housing element in their project. And so we looked at our city policy, which was a mandatory policy, which was a duplicative policy. Many developers do choose to include low-income housing in their multifamily projects. because they want to avail themselves of the density bonus. The state of California, the legislature decided to use an incentive-based model to favor the inclusion of low-income housing in multifamily. I personally favor that incentive model rather than the mandate model. But certainly when you stack the incentive model and then you stack the mandate model that we had on top of it, now you have a duplicative policy. And so that was really what we were trying to remedy and giving maximum flexibility to developers and to communities to build the kind of communities that they want to build. And I still believe that neighborhoods, our city, developers and neighbors of developments ought to have the biggest say. And I think the fewer mandates that we place, the less we drive up the cost of housing and the more affordable we make it in general. So that's why I favor the incentive model that the state legislature has adopted and made the law of the land in our city and every city in the state as an option over the mandate model. So that's where I am on that issue.
I agree with Councilmember Franklin. Councilmember Green, Deputy Mayor Green. I got to get that. Deputy Mayor Green.
That's right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I definitely understand inclusionary housing, and the new Creekside project, actually, that was built right over there behind the old Bonies, is a keen example of inclusionary housing. We knocked down all those mobile homes that were in that area. We had to build the Grove senior community, and also had to do some inclusionary housing in that Creekside development. So inclusionary housing is great, and I do think it's a great mechanism to get more affordable housing in your community if there's a true need. However, I feel like after speaking with Patsy Chow, looking at the numbers allocated by RENA, looking at the numbers of what the actual incomes are within our city, we're clearly providing an adequate amount of affordable housing. And to add an additional overlay of an inclusive unit mandate on top of the incentivized mandates from the state is a little much, knowing that we aren't failing in that particular realm of our numbers. So at this point in time, I am not in favor of adding an inclusionary overlay to the housing element. And with that, I would move that we approve the housing element as presented.
I would second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, so please cast your votes.
We actually don't need a vote, I don't believe, Patsy, unless you say otherwise on this. It was just to get direction.
Correct. Yeah, we don't need a formal vote. We'll be back in April for actual formal hearing and the housing element, but I do appreciate the comment.
Oh, okay, then. With that, we will move on to our next discussion item, which is the preliminary review of the proposed general plan amendment and zone change on Vista Grande. So Community Development and Engineering Director John Conley is going to provide the staff report, followed by a presentation by the applicant. If any members of the public wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise hand feature or pressing *9 now. The speakers will be called upon after the staff presentations.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a preliminary review of a proposal for a general plan amendment and zone change on Vista Grande Drive, assessor's parcel numbers 171-100-05 and 28. If you could go to the next slide, please. So we've received a preliminary proposal for a general plan and zone change. The site is approximately 17 acres. It's located on the north side of Vista Grande Drive, just west of Vista Grande Terrace, in the northeastern corner of the city. This property that's the subject of the discussion tonight was annexed into Vista in 2017, along with a tentative subdivision map for 14 1-acre minimum single-family residential lots and associated private streets. At the time it was annexed, it was designated rural residential, which is 1 dwelling unit per acre maximum density, and it was zoned A1, which is agricultural 1-acre minimum. The proposal that's being discussed tonight is asking to increase the density to 2 acres or 2 units per acre, which is a low density residential designation, and change the zoning to estate residential, which would allow half-acre lots. Next slide. This is the subject property located on the north side of Vista Grande. The blue line that shows around the periphery of the property that runs south and west of the site is the city boundary. So you can see it's at the limits of the city boundary. Properties west, north, east, and south of the project site are in the county, and property to the southwest that you can note that's vacant is in the city of Vista. It's 2 legal parcels with a single family home on it at 2277 Vista Grande Drive. The other parcel's vacant. That summarizes the site. Next slide, please. The application that's being discussed tonight is for a general plan amendment. On the left shows the existing general plan designation on the site of rural residential, and below what's proposed or what's being requested, which is low density residential. On the right is the zoning. The existing zoning is agricultural A1, and what's being proposed is estate residential E1. Next slide. The applicant submitted a proposal to develop a site with 28 half-acre lots with single-family homes. It's included as Exhibit 5 in the agenda report, and I have the slide here as well. The staff has not reviewed the proposal that the applicant submitted for conformity with our code. At this point, we just want to present what they're asking to the council and discuss the general plan and zone change in concept to make sure that there is at least political support to consider this application further. If a formal application is submitted, there's a process that they would need to go through, and it would have to come back to the commission and the council. Next slide. This is the applicant's preliminary proposal that was submitted, showing the conceptual layout for the subdivision that is being discussed. It would take access off of Vista Grande Drive and include an internal layout of private streets that would serve the 28 half-acre lots. Next slide. As you know, all of our general plan and zone change requests are at the discretion of the City Council with a formal recommendation required by the Planning Commission. That action would occur if a formal application is submitted. At the point of submittal of proposals, staff brings all those requests for general plan amendments and zone changes before the City Council for discussion, which is what we're here to discuss tonight. The purpose of that is to provide the applicant an opportunity to obtain input from the City Council on their proposal, as well as informing the public and the surrounding neighborhood of the proposal to allow some public input at the beginning of the process. So with that, staff is requesting that the City Council provide some input to the applicant related to the proposal that's before you this evening. I know the applicant has their own presentation that they'd like to provide to the City Council following the staff presentation. But that completes my staff presentation, and I'm available for any questions prior to the applicant's presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh. John, we don't actually see Greg or Bob on if they want to raise their hand so we can identify them easier.
Okay, they should be on the Zoom call. They did send me their presentation and said they would be prepared. Look here. Murrow, DC.
Okay. All right, so Claire, if you want to go ahead and put up their presentation and we can have them start. Thanks for your help, John.
Yep.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the introduction and thank you all for your time. Mayor, City Council, and City staff, thank you for the opportunity to kind of present our project to you guys at this point in time. I hope you all had an enjoyable holiday season, that you and your families are staying safe in this current environment. So if you can, next slide, please. So my name is Greg Perrine. Bob Garrison is a colleague of mine who's next to me, who will join us in this presentation at some point in time. We are currently under contract and in due diligence to purchase the subject property of the proposed Vista Grande development. Collectively, Bob and myself have 5 or 6 decades of experience and expertise in all areas of land development, from land acquisition, due diligence, CEQA entitlements, all the way through the development and the execution of the project. And we again appreciate the opportunity to present our project to you guys. Next slide, please. So we're in the early stages of kind of defining the project, and what we've provided today, we'll go through some of the components, but one of the things we felt was largely important for us is to assemble a team that we felt can be very advantageous to not only the project, but the neighborhood and the community in general. You'll see here we've identified a few of the different consultants that would be helping us out. You have our architect, KTGY, who has a significant amount of experience in and out throughout Southern California and especially in Vista. Our landscape architect is Howard & Associates. They're based in San Diego and have done a lot of work within the city of Vista. And the other two that we've identified at this point in time is Intessa. We felt it very important to ensure that we hired a company who's going to help us kind of communicate and ensure that our outreach is proper and that we are meeting the community and ensuring that we're hearing their voice and that we can incorporate it accordingly. The final consultant we've kind of selected this time is a civil engineer, Pasco. They have a lot of experience throughout the city of Vista and San Diego County in particular. And again, we felt this was very important to assemble a team that was local. Again, most of these Howard & Associates and Intessa, as well as Pasco, all have operations in the county of San Diego. Specifically, we found it very actually awesome that a couple of the individuals who will be running point for Intessa and for Pasco actually grew up in the city of Vista. We felt that very important because, again, they were a member of the community. They were born and raised there, went to the public schools of the city of Vista. And again, we like to have that kind of feedback and input as we're going to continue to develop the project. And so that's kind of our initial project staff at this point in time. Next slide, please. And I apologize for some of the redundancy. John and the staff did such a great job in the presentation. So some of these particular slides coming up here will be a little redundant. So I'll kind of go through them rather quickly. But as John alluded to, we're looking to kind of amend the general plan and update the zoning to what we feel is going to be a little bit more consistent with the general area. I know the staff presentation had a slide in there which kind of showed the correlation between the two. If you can go to the next slide, please. I think we also have so this is that same, the boundary map that John provided. Again, we just wanted to kind of make it known that the project that we're working on is in the city of Vista. It was, as John alluded to, it was annexed from the county of San Diego back in 2017. And our property is right there up in the kind of northeast quadrant within that blue boundary. Next slide, please. This here is a very similar map to the one that kind of the staff presented their presentation. But what we wanted to show is, again, where we feel the proposed project going to 28 half-acre lots into a low-density residential designation, you can see as it specifically relates to within the city of Vista boundary, which is immediately to the southerly west of the image of our property, as shown on the exhibit. It's all zoned and it has a general plan very consistent with what we're proposing. And so we feel when we look at that as far as from a city standpoint and where the adjacencies are, again, one of the big things we're always looking at is what's the consistency and the overall elements that we want to try to incorporate. And we feel the proposal to go to half-acre lots is something that's consistent with the city of Vista proper. Further, the immediate homeowners or the properties to the south of Vista Grande Drive, which are in the county of San Diego, all of those properties are half-acre lots as well. And so again, the adjacencies and the consistency of what we're proposing, we feel is consistent with what is kind of in the surrounding area. Next slide, please. So kind of our project goals and timeline, again, we're kind of in the early stages of due diligence and we're looking to kind of get some feedback from the council. And what we're trying to accomplish ultimately at the end of the day is to provide a sustainable housing community. What does sustainable mean? We have a couple of items we're going to discuss as we get further into the presentation, but ultimately it's a project that's going to kind of, through certain aspects, be able to operate on its own, leave less of an impact to the surrounding area as well. And so we'll dive in a little bit into those particulars on a later slide. The other thing that's critically important to us is maintaining and incorporating elements from the surrounding area. We recognize this area through many conversations with some of the adjacent neighbors and the community, as well as meeting with each of the city council and the mayor individually to discuss the project, that this is a rural area. It's a semi-rural area. We want to keep that consistency and that component to that. And so we want to make sure that when we're designing a project that it's in compliance with city standards. And there's rural city standards that would kind of help guide us in that path. But we recognize that this is a project that we want to, again, ensure that certain elements of the surrounding area are being adhered to and incorporated into our project. Right now, we'll show you a couple slides as it comes on, but the property is currently vacant with a single family home on the northwest portion of the property. So much of the 17 acres is currently just fallow, kind of being misused to a certain extent and kind of a potential fire hazard as well. And so with us moving forward with this project, we think it's an overall enhancement to the surrounding area and the property as well. And again, the other big critical goal for us and why we assembled a team that we feel is local, who understands Vista, who's committed to Vista, is we want to continue to listen to the community. We want to listen to the city residents. We want to listen to the city staff and ensure that we're implementing something that is consistent with the overall neighborhood and the community as opposed to just something that strictly benefits this project. As we move forward, our projected timeline is, kind of make a formal application to the city sometime in March of this year. And then from that point in time, we'll move forward with the secret process where we'll be kind of administering a lot of different technical studies, reviewing and understanding the impacts that our project brings to not only our specific area, but to the community as well. And with that, we'll go through a lot of the analysis to determine how our project is and what is going to come about. Next project, please, or next slide, please. So again, to kind of give you a little breakdown, a little bit more on the characteristics of the project. Again, we're proposing, 28 half-acre gated community. You can see this. Some of the topography on the existing site you'll see is beautiful. It's got some great elevations, some great undulations to the site. We have every intention to adhere to the existing topography of the site. We're going to do what we need to do to maintain the consistency of those elevations and make sure that, again, it's something that's consistent and not something that's completely different or deviating from what we're trying to accommodate. The next thing, another characteristic is there's going to be a dedication of Vista Grande Drive. This is important because I think it's going to add an extra layer of safety and a safe travel pathway for not only the pedestrians, but cars as well. And we'll kind of address that a little bit further as we get down into some of the other slides. But again, right now, Vista Grande Drive is a challenging road, and we'll show you an illustration of that. And I think with us willingness to dedicate some of our property for the benefit of that road is going to benefit, obviously, our project from an accessibility standpoint, but all the adjacent neighbors as well as fire, trash, and everyone else that needs to kind of access the site at some point in time. You'll notice in the bottom right of our project, there's a secondary emergency vehicle access only. This is something that we're going to propose as simply that, secondary emergency vehicle access. This is not an area that's going to be accessed regularly by the residents of our project or the adjacent residents. It's simply going to be there as a means and methods of emergency vehicles to access when and if needed. The last thing we wanted to kind of touch on from a project characteristic standpoint is the sustainable building features. I kind of alluded to it earlier. And some of those that we are looking into is building materials. In today's environment, we're going to build with materials that we think are consistent with the area. We're in a high fire zone. We recognize that. And we're going to be looking for different fire resistant materials, whether it be fiber cement board, gypsum board, fire resistant glass for windows, all sorts of things that are going to help facilitate and mitigate the potential for a fire to come, hit a house and then extend on past our project. And so in conjunction with the building materials, we feel it's very important to kind of help regulate the fires with kind of putting these kind of materials in place. Stormwater treatment. We at some point will be required to collect, treat, and discharge our water. Right now, we are looking at different opportunities, and based on some of the preliminary information we've seen from some of our consultants, there's an opportunity for us to do something that we want to do because we feel it's sustainable. And what that is to collect the water and recharge the groundwater system. There's an opportunity. The state of California has various requirements from a water quality standpoint. And I believe their first requirement is, if you can, collect that water, treat it, and discharge it back into the groundwater system. That's something based on some preliminary information we feel we're going to do. And in doing so, what that does is that puts a less of an impact on the existing infrastructure. So we anticipate being able to mitigate a lot of our existing stormwater when rain events take place, treated it on site, and then again, recharging the groundwater system. Another concept that we're getting into is this gray water system. And again, in an effort to limit the amount of impact that we have on different resources, water being one of them, we're going to look into a gray water system for the homes. What a gray water system is, it's effectively a collection and diversion device on a house that allows you to take water that's used from your sinks and your showers and your tubs into a holding tank, if you will, to then that could be used. It kind of gets treated, but it gets used for irrigation purposes on site. And so again, the purpose here is to be able to utilize some of our existing uses, water that we run in our shower, water that we run under the sink, and take that and put it back into the property as opposed to using some of the valuable resources we have here in the state of California, water from a potable standpoint. Another final comment is just native and drought tolerant plant palette. It's important for us to kind of understand the surrounding area, adhere to these rural elements, and we'll put together a plant palette that's going to be consistent with, a treatment and drought tolerant, using as little water as you can, but also making it look consistent with the surrounding elements. I'm going to step away, and Bob Garrison's going to jump in on the next slide. So next slide, please.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and council members. Thanks for your time and allowing us to present to you. So the community outreach, we've done a significant amount of that. Again, we're in our early stages. Yes, we're under contract, but we've spent a lot of time in the community and we've enjoyed that opportunity. On December 3rd, we met with the neighbors at the property site and presented our project to them. The other thing we did was we really listened closely to all the words that were said to us and all the thinking that they had. And we've corresponded with those people and we've had telephone calls. We subsequently had a meeting on New Year's Eve morning, and fortunately, Deputy Mayor Green joined us. Thank you very much for doing that. That was really helpful. And we stood on the back patio of one of the neighbors and discussed what they were interested in, what their concerns were with our project. So we've done that. And then we had the opportunity to meet with all of the council members, and thank you for that, and Mayor. We appreciate that. And then also conversations with the gas station owner for that gas station that's been vacant for years down at East Vista Way and Warmlands. So what we've heard, and the real key for us is to listen closely when people are talking to us. We're coming in here to be part of the community, and we care about the wider range of issues, not just our property. Certainly the gas station. We first met with Joe. The very first thing he said, hey, what do you see at East Vista Way and Warmlands? And I said, well, vacant gas station. He goes, yeah, well, it's a vacant gas station that's in bad repair. Got it. Understood. The entry corridor. Yes, East Vista Way and Warmlands. Traffic, that's an issue. Traffic is a big issue. And so we bring that up. That's been brought up to us numerous times. Fire and safety. Greg alluded to that. The development of the project, we believe, helps mitigate some of those issues by improving Vista Grande Drive, the access for fire, the access and better circulation of the water and fire hydrants up in that area, and then misuse of the current property. In other words, trash and so on. Next slide, please. City benefits. Well, as proposed, and what we're hoping for, obviously, is an approval of our proposed project, would be 28 new households and people that would be coming into the community and would be living there and spending their dollars there. New restaurant uses, and they would be, shopping in the local stores. I think that's a benefit. In terms of the city itself, impact fees, probably $1 million, $1.3 million, $1.4 million of impact fees. And then, of course, property tax increases and the benefits associated with that with the property values. Next slide, please. Greg?
Thanks, Bob. So after we kind of looked at, again, what we're trying to accomplish, what our project goals are, we start to look into, again, the city benefits that Bob had outlined. And then, what are some of the community benefits that we see? You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, this was a picture that was provided to us from one of the adjacent residences on December 31st. And you'll see there's mattresses that got dropped off on the site. While this is a great, beautiful piece of property, I think in certain situations it's being enjoyed the wrong way. We've gotten some further feedback from some of the adjacent residents that, there's some illegal dumping that you see in that picture. There's some trespassing and some loitering that wouldn't otherwise be warranted or wanted. And so by us kind of taking the next steps to develop the site, we feel that it's going to be an enhancement from a site security and a public safety standpoint. There'll be residents who will be there that will be enjoying the area. And I think it will alleviate some of the current issues that some of the adjacent residents have expressed to us. The next one is the improvement. Oh, I'm sorry. If you can go back. Thank you. The improved traffic safety. And we kind of touched on this a little earlier. The image you see on the lower right is a Google Earth image of existing Vista Grande Way as it looks easterly towards our project. So as you're coming up from Warmlands, as it turns into Vista Grande Drive, you make that bend and you come up to our project, you'll notice the road and the condition. Driven it many times, talked to many of the residents in the surrounding community, and it's an issue. The road is in very bad shape. One, it doesn't have adequate width for proper mobilization and proper circulation. Two, the actual integrity of the asphalt is deteriorating. Right now, we envision that it's an issue for fires' ability to come up and properly access the site. We've spoken with a couple of the existing residents with regard to trash. And right now, a trash truck has to drive up that road and back up all the way down that road. And whenever a big trash truck's backing up, I'm a father with 2 young boys. I mean, there's just a safety concern that you have to consider. And again, with us going in there and making the necessary improvements to widen this road, we feel that's going to be a benefit for, one, again, a public safety to get fire and to get trash up there and going from a circulation element, but most importantly, from a safety element. Again, right now, when the road gets in different conditions after maybe a rain event, it's a challenge to drive. And this is what some of the residents have expressed to us. And so we feel, again, with the widening of this road, it's going to be a kind of an enhancement to that area from a circulation standpoint. One of the other things that we envision as being a community benefit is the removal of the overhead lines. One, from an aesthetic standpoint, it's great, but two, most importantly, by undergrounding these overhead power lines, it's going to kind of potentially mitigate an unsafe fire hazard. As we know, sometimes power surges happen, sparks take place. A lot of fires are started by an oversurge in the power. And so by putting these underground, we think it's going to be a kind of a constant reminder that, again, from a safety standpoint, it makes a lot of sense and it would mitigate potential fire issues. One of the other community benefits we see is the stormwater management improvements. I kind of alluded to this in the very beginning with respect to how we want to try to propose a recharging of the groundwater system. We still feel that's very viable, but in addition to that, we're also going to put in some best management practices. We're going to be putting in some stormwater infrastructure that's going to really help collect and divert our water. As it exists today, what happens when a rain event takes place, because there's some elevation from Vista Grande Drive up to our project, is the water flows down into Vista Grande Drive. Our dirt, our sediment, our erosion is all going into the street, which makes a way down Vista Grande Drive and gets into the city system that kind of can contaminate the system from that standpoint. Further, some of the adjacent neighbors to the south of Vista Grande Drive have expressed to us that when a rain event comes, that water floods them. It goes across Vista Grande Drive, it goes into their property, and they have no real way of actually handling that and maintaining that. And so, again, with the development of this project, a lot of those issues go away because, again, we're going to isolate and collect that water on site. We're going to treat it accordingly. And in doing so, we think we're going to remove the impact of, one, the dirt, the silt and the erosion, but also the flooding that some of the adjacent neighbors are currently experiencing. Next slide, please.
Hi, I'm back. Continuing with the community benefits, mitigating the potential fire hazard. We've talked about that. Again, access for for trucks, for fighting the fire, for fire hydrants that will be installed, and so on. Infrastructure enhancement, we've talked about that. And then specifically with Warmlands and East Vista Way, that's another thing that has been brought to our attention through all of our calls and meetings, is the stack up that occurs down there on a right turn coming down Warmlands to East Vista Way, right turn challenges, how long you have to wait, stack up and wait, same with left turn. So what we did is we took it on ourselves to go out to our traffic engineer and say, hey, what would this take, and start looking at it and do a study. So they're in the middle of that. And what it's going to involve, it'll involve moving the power poles, it'll involve moving the communication poles, which, by the way, have some major communication lines on them. John Conley was very helpful in that he provided us a exhibit that showed us the right-of-way lines, the city right-of-way, so we could see how far the road would need to be pushed and could be pushed. So that was that. In terms of the gas station enhancement, I know that's been sitting there. There's the photo of it, lovely. And John and us and Joe talked about this extensively in our meeting. And I reached out to the owner of the gas station, and he and I have been in contact for the last month and a half. The first time I talked to him was about a few days after we met with you, Joe, and with John. And he was pretty darn cordial. And he told me that he'd go in and meet with the city. He understood he had some challenges. He's worried about the legal issue. And I told him that you'd be welcome, sir, with open arms if you would go into the city and start working on this. So he did that. He's met with the building official, and he was going to go back and do his plans. I've been checking with John on the progress. I understand he had that meeting. I understand he hasn't been back. Osama and I talked again on the 23rd of December. He told me he would be back in. He was preparing his package. I talked to him again today. He basically said, I'm ready. I'm going to be going back in. Just let me go do the work. So we'll see. And we'll stay in touch with him and we'll keep working on it. He wasn't as happy that I called him this time. Next slide, please. All right, so here we are. Our traffic engineer, we asked him to contact John Conley and discuss with John what kind of intersection reviews should we be taking on as a anticipation of what we might be impacting with our 28 homes. And it came out to these potential intersections that would be studied. East Vista Way and Gopher Canyon, East Vista Way Osborne, East Vista Way Warrenlands, and East Vista Way Taylor Street. What's the point? The point is only that we're thinking from the bigger picture. We're not just thinking of ourselves. We're not just thinking of our property. It's like with the gas station and the intersections, et cetera. We're actually trying to think of it from a holistic standpoint, from a community benefit standpoint. Anyway, thank you. And Greg?
Next slide, please. It's kind of a project summary and wrap up. So again, thank you guys for being patient with us. So to kind of summarize what we kind of just went over again, the proposed project to get to 28 half-acre lots is going to require a general plan amendment, a zone change, and a tentative subdivision map. Talked about some of the goals that we want to try to accomplish. Again, consistency with the surrounding area, using some of the existing resources that we have to kind of limit the impact on the existing infrastructure, creating a safer environment from a traffic circulation standpoint, mobility and circulation. And as then the enhancement of the existing infrastructure. I mean, as Bob alluded to, we're looking at different ways that are outside kind of the realm of our project. We're looking at specific improvements that will directly benefit our project right now with regard to Vista Grande Drive. Not only the surface improvements, but we're going to be extending and enhancing some of the underground improvements with respect to sewer and for water. And an expansion of water allows us to put more fire hydrants in that area. It allows us, the fire department, to, again, be able to properly access that area, then also have the infrastructure in place to really help support should a fire ever take place. As we continue to proceed and progress, again, the process for us is going to require extensive studies. We're going to look into traffic. We're going to look into biological habitat. We're going to look into greenhouse gases, air quality. All of these different components of the project are something that we welcome and we want to look at and understand because we want to get them addressed, and they will be mitigated depending on the severity or whatever our project might present. And so as we kind of continue to move forward, we're going to continue to stay in touch with the community. We're going to continue to keep the community apprised of the project status and what we're doing. And ultimately, we're going to take their suggestions under consideration. Again, what we think we're presenting from a proposed project standpoint, we feel it's sustainable. We recognize the importance of it being environmentally friendly. We want to build with sustainable materials. We want to be able to collect and treat our stormwater. We want to be able to reuse the resources we have to limit the impact on the existing infrastructure. And lastly, again, as Bob alluded to, I mean, we're committed to the project. We're committed to the city of Vista. We're not committed to the 28 proposed subdivision. What we're committed to is putting together a project that we feel is consistent with the area, that we feel makes sense for the community. There's going to be some give and there's going to be some take. And we're going to continue to do what we need to do to go out of our way, such as a case in point, the gas station owner. We recognize where that is. And again, this was kind of a challenge we took on from Joe. Mr. Green was, hey, what can we do to help maybe support that? And so we proactively went out there. We're engaging the different people, the current property owners, the current community. We're going to continue to do that as we advance the project. That's all we have. Next slide, but it's just a thank you. So we sincerely appreciate your guys' time and consideration. And thank you guys for the opportunity to present our project.
I'm here, actually. Okay, so with that, we will, we have speakers. Do you want to hear the speakers first, everyone? Yes, okay. So City Clerk, do we have?
Yes, we do have a few speakers. The first is Chip. Go ahead, Chip, if you please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. Chip Hasley, Park Row Properties. Thank you, Mayor Ritter and council members for the opportunity. I'll be brief. That presentation was very thorough. I just wanted to convey to the council that I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of the property owner, Omni Financial. They are in support of the applicant's proposal. They think it's an appropriate use for the property and it's compatible with the land use the city's land use in that area. We also think it will address the housing shortage. And it was interesting hearing Ms. Chow talk about the housing element. This will provide some of that above moderate housing that is needed in the city. So I just wanted to convey the support from the property owner for the applicant's proposal. I was also the applicant on the original project for 14 lots. So if there's any questions that come up during the hearing, I'll be happy to try to provide some background on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ursula Sack, I believe. Go ahead. Ursula, you can go ahead and speak. I'm not sure if that's the name.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not real good at this technology stuff, so. Okay, thank you. My name is Ursula Sack, and I'm speaking to you as a representative of Guajomie Alliance for Responsible Development, as well as someone who's personally affected by this project. I live on Vista Grande Terrace near the property, and Vista Grande Terrace is a private road that we maintain ourselves. It is slated to be used as an emergency evacuation exit. And we are concerned there could be up to maybe 40 families evacuating onto our street if this were there. And we would perhaps be blocked from being able to get out ourselves out of our street. So that's quite a concern. It's gratifying to be able to participate in a discussion tonight about the larger issues involved here, because usually when a decision is being made about a project, we're told that the project stands alone, that you approve or deny based on its specifics without regard to the cumulative effects it might have on the greater community. But tonight we can ask you to take a broad view, look at the big picture here. And what this all really boils down to is the integrity of your general plan and the integrity of the promises you made when you annexed the land with agricultural zoning, so that the property would serve as an appropriate interface with surrounding county lands. The developer is asking you to take a narrow view. Yes, there is one City of Vista E1 property that borders this property for about 260 feet. Everything else all the way around is county land. And yes, there are a handful of half-acre lots on the south side of Vista Grande Drive. All the other surrounding lots are much larger, including the Strawberry Hill 300 acres of prime farmland to the north. You may have seen that the folks who live on Vista Grande Drive have submitted form letters after meeting with the developer. They're seeking benefits, and if you've ever seen the sorry condition of their road, you'd understand why. But any benefits provided by development would happen under the current 1 acre agricultural zoning. There's no need to double the density to half-acre lots, but there are lots of good reasons not to. The serious negative consequences of putting 28 homes on this high fire risk hilltop include the danger of wildfire spread throughout the community, danger to Vista Grande Terrace residents being blocked during an evacuation, growth-inducing development pressure on prime farmland, loss of open space and blue sky views, loss of rural community character, increased traffic, greenhouse gases, and all the other evils of sprawl development. We are asking that a general plan amendment be rejected. Keep the current zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cliff Kaiser. Go ahead, Cliff.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and Council. I agree wholeheartedly with the previous participant. A few years ago, there was a big discussion about the property at the gas station and how the City of Vista was not doing enough to mitigate the blight that caused. And there were a lot of people in that upper income community that didn't like that the City of Vista wasn't doing anything. And so I would also expand that to the property behind the gas station, which is not very well maintained, as well as the Mexican restaurant property just to the north of Warmlands and East Vista Way. So in order to address the community of Warmlands and Prince Way and Kingsway, which is really, in a sense, the Rancho Santa Fe of Vista, because in the 60s and 70s, Vista could have become the Rancho Santa Fe of San Diego County. And then the policies, unfortunately, prevented that from happening. So we can't, I would urge you not to allow this northeast area of Vista to become blighted or dumbed down. I agree again with the previous caller that said that don't change the zone, don't change the plan, leave it at what it is. And if there is really a need to make a change, make it during the normal process of a general plan change or a zone amendment change, what happens every 5 or 10 years. Don't make exceptions to that rule. Regarding some of the conditions that were stated about how we would remove some of the mattresses and stuff like that, that's a zone enforcement thing. That's not something that's going to change because we change the zone status or the general plan status. I mean, the zone enforcement has a lot of improvement that needs to be made. So thank you for your time. I would encourage you to not change this until a normal general plan change comes before the community, because that has a much more thorough review than just a plan change like this. Thank you again.
Thank you. Next is Elisa Willens-Davis. Go ahead, Elisa.
I'm unmuting myself. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. First of all, thank you very much, Mayor Ritter and Deputy Mayor Joe Green and the rest of the council for listening to our concerns. My name is Elisa Willens-Davis, and I'm speaking on behalf of both me and my husband. We're longtime residents, 35 years here in Vista. With each passing year, the threat of fire devastation increases and our traffic becomes denser. Consequently, the air and noise pollution is the quality of our air and noise pollution is also affected and diminished. Our greatest concern is the danger if we needed, and I believe Ursula brought this up, if we needed to evacuate suddenly due to a wildfire, it is difficult to get out of town via East Vista Way on a normal day due to the everyday traffic congestion. We can only imagine the terror of trying to escape a wildfire when traffic on East Vista Way is backed up in both directions. This proposal to develop the property referenced in this meeting to 28 residential lots may not seem like a big deal. However, it is the cumulative increase of housing over the years without a proportional expansion of infrastructure that will demise our lovely city. The other point I want to make is where my husband and I live, we're at the top, we're right up against this lot. And so as you drive up the easement of Vista Grande Terrace, we're right at the top there. People drive to our home and perch themselves on this lot every single 4th of July. And we've lived in this home for 20 years to watch the firework displays that they can see all around North County because the sky is dark and we're up on a hill with a ridge. It provides a beautiful view all the way to the ocean and the natural landscape around Camp Pendleton. Now, this is a little an aside. I would just want to encourage a consideration by the mayor, deputy mayor, and council members. And I have no idea whether this is even feasible. Nonetheless, I want to say that to be consistent with the City of Vista's smart growth goals, ideally, the city could purchase this land as a community park where Vista residents could walk dogs, hike, watch fireworks, watch sunsets, and in so doing, the city would be promoting fire safety by landscaping with fire-resistant plants, walking trails, and other man-made features.
Alyssa, I'm sorry, your time is up.
That could serve as fire breaks. That's all I wanted. That's pretty much the end of it. So thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Next is Carol. Go ahead, Carol.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I just wanted to say, what is the use of having a zoning plan if every developer that comes along and asks you to change it, you just roll over for them? I've seen you guys do it many, many times, and I'm really tired of watching our plans go down the toilet because you want to make your developers happy. I also feel like if you have a real estate interest, you should recuse yourself from these sorts of decisions. And I wholeheartedly agree with the previous caller. I think having a park in Vista that actually has vistas that we can view from it is a fantastic idea. And I think it would serve everyone. It would make our whole community more valuable. And it would actually be something that everyone could benefit from. I know that you guys don't like that idea, many of you, but I really encourage you to explore that. I know that it's money out of the coffers, but it would be money well spent. Thank you.
Carol, would you state your last name, please?
Jeffries.
Thank you. Next is Desiree. Go ahead, Desiree.
Hi, thanks. Thank you, Council and Mayor and Kathy for taking the call earlier today. I've been living in North County, San Diego as an Encinitas since 98. I've been in Vista for about 8 years now, Carlsbad for 12 and a half. This is a really, really special area. And I think that any good business wants to keep what works and what is special about their assets. And this is one of those assets. I think it makes a smart business decision I like what Ursula said. I also like what the last few callers have said. The park is an amazing idea or suggestion, keeping with what the guidelines have been set forth in the past. Staying with your truths, I think brings a lot of integrity and, to the 1 acre lots versus half acre lots. I live on Vista Terrace. I am a little nervous with fire danger. Being in North County for 22 years now, we've been I was evacuated by Carlsbad High School. I was evacuated a few years ago with fires here. There is no infrastructure set up. I appreciate what these developers want to do as far as sustainable, but construction alone is not sustainable. It causes emissions that harm the environment on a global scale. It impacts our local community. Waste, noise, dust, solid waste, toxic generation, air pollution, water pollution, bad odor, climate change, land use, operation with vegetation and hazardous emissions. I mean, the list is onward. And, this place is, I feel like City of Vista really could embrace this area. It reminds me a lot of Montecito. It's not the echo. It's not as expensive as Montecito is, but it's got this very specialness and this warmth. And I think I really encourage you guys to try to preserve that. I feel also that by changing the parcel, that you open the floodgates to other areas, close areas as well in the vicinity. I love the park idea, and sorry if I'm not making much sense. I'm kind of rambling all over. But thank you for listening and appreciate you all.
Thank you, Desiree. And your last name?
I'm sorry, Desiree Astorga.
Okay.
I didn't give you any of my bio. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Next is Gary Moore. Go ahead, Gary. Gary, if you'll unmute yourself.
I don't know. I really said some nice stuff there. I'm sorry you missed it. But I want to thank the Honorable Mayor and also the City Council for listening. I wasn't going to say anything this evening, but after hearing some of the things that were said, I think it's important that maybe you have some additional input. My particular home happens to overlook pretty much the whole area. I'm not right next to it, but I'm like one lot away from the entire site. One of the things I feel, first of all, very fortunate that the city of Vista has left that land alone, because it's been very nice raising a family, having open land. I agree with the people who are talking about how special it is. I would really want to attend a meeting to oppose a park going in that area, but that's a whole other issue. I'll tell you why I was encouraged when I saw the plans, but understand we only have part of the plan. They just have the land. There is nothing about what's going to be built on there, and that's important for all of you as you're making your decisions on what's going to be going on there. But I couldn't help but think, I'm a business guy, so I look at it and I know it's going to have to be fairly nice homes, would have to go on a half acre lots. And I think Vista could use some additional nice homes. And this is a very special spot. As individuals have mentioned, the views from up there are awesome. And there's a lot that can be done there. I've always been concerned about that road when it came to fire. I watched the fire trucks come up there. I'm sure you can talk to the fire chief and they'll tell you they come there to practice on how to work there. And I appreciate what they do. And the fire and the trash trucks, it's a nightmare to get on that current road. I would say City Council, regardless what happens here, look into that, because somebody is going to get hurt up there eventually. But I'm kind of the other way. I'm encouraged with these developers. I'm encouraged with, they're actually land developers. They're not builders for homes. I'm highly anxious to see what type of homes they're thinking of building there and how that can help our wonderful city here in Vista. This is an area that can, I think, make a significant difference for a lot of people. So thank you for listening. And thanks for this hearing.
Thank you. Next is Vicki. Go ahead, Vicki, and if you'll state your last name, please.
Hi, my name is Vicki Frost, and I was not going to say anything, but since Gary said what he said, I'm going to come at it from another perspective, which is I live at the bend, the elbow at Vista Grande Drive, and the developer said that all these homes were consistent with the homes south of Vista Grande Drive. Well, I live north of Vista Grande Drive. All the homes that are on the north side of Vista Grande Drive are not consistent with what they want to do higher on the north of Vista Grande Drive with the 28 units, so a half an acre per lot. I didn't even get the flyer for this because I guess I'm out of the area, even though it involves my street. I got the flyer because we also own a home on Prince, and we were given that flyer that was given to us that was sent to Prince Way. My concern is the 14 units where they have one lot per unit seems to be reasonable to me. 28 units, no. Vista Grande Drive has people walking all the time, people walking their dogs, people walking their babies, just getting out walking, exercising. It's a wonderful place to walk to the top of the hill. You look at the view, you walk back down. Now we have traffic on Vista Grande Drive, but if we added 14 more units, which you give 2 cars per unit, that's 28 more cars that come and go all day long. Now we double that to 56 units with 56 more cars that come and go. We're going to end up with people not being able to enjoy the road or have accidents on that road and on that bend as they come speeding down the hill, jumping out of the way, families, bicycle people riding their bikes and whatnot, who live on this immediate street on Vista Grande Drive, on both sides of the elbow, going up and going towards Warmland, as well as people on Prince that come around from Prince and walk to the top of the hill and then come back around. So that would be my biggest concern with doubling the amount of units. Is you're doubling the amount of cars and you're doubling the amount of the people perhaps that even walk it. And that would be would ruin the environment of what we've got now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Al Colby. Go ahead, Al.
Okay, I know I don't sound like an Al. My name is actually Paula Colby, and we've lived in the Vista area for since 2003, and we've lived actually immediately adjacent to and in the southeast corner of this project. We have 2.5 acres, not a half-acre lot. And I am in particular concerned about the keeping the integrity of the area as far as, like, for instance, agriculture. The San Diego area, you probably know, has the most small farms, meaning mostly here 1 to 9 acres, of any county in the whole country, according to the UCR Ag Economics and Small Farms Program. And a lot of those farms some of those farms anyway, I know quite a number are organic and pesticide free and trying to do integrated pest management. And I'm concerned one thing about pollinators and colony collapse and all that. You all know about that. But the denser construction and denser construction tends to bring in more concentrated toxins related to clearing the land and the building. And also, it's known that Vista area, well, not just Vista, San Diego is known as a birder's paradise. You probably know that. And we have over 500 species of migratory native and exotic birds here. And migratory patterns are affected greatly by shrunken habitat. And we are fortunate, I guess. I didn't realize that there was a trash problem on this property that we look at multiple times a day. We're right there. We share the border with them. And what we see is beautiful chaparral. And we do witness people hiking the trail there. And it's also low growing for the most part, and does not, to me, present that much of a fire hazard as we saw in some of the wildfires this last summer, where densely populated areas with all the toxins in the building material created quite a problem, as Desiree mentioned. Let's see. One thing about the birds. My husband looked out just a couple days ago and got this great shot. No telescopic lens, no fancy camera, just his cell phone. He got a beautiful shot. It's either an egret or a heron. And I mean, that's what we see.
Well, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Next is Frederick Heald. Go ahead, Frederick.
Yeah, this is Fred Heald. I live right adjacent to the property, and I've had communication with the developer, and I appreciate their openness with communicating with me. I'd like to echo what the woman on the corner said. There is the blind corner on Vista Grande, and at the moment, it is a huge safety hazard every time somebody comes around that corner, because there are people walking on the street. I remember when we did when they annexed it to the city, they said there will only ever be 13 units here. This is all we are asking is 13 units. And one of the city developers said, I love living in a city with no sidewalks, which was crazy to me. We walk our child, we walk our dog, people all over the neighborhood walk on that street. And it is a hazard right now. And adding 50 more cars a day is going to be a huge hazard. So that is my primary concern with this. And I have voiced that to the developer. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Okay, that is it for the speakers. So we will close opportunity to speak at this time.
Okay, so that takes us to, hold on. I guess they take us to the council members. So we'll see if we have any questions or comments from the council members. Deputy Mayor Green.
Dang, got it right the first time. Good job, Madam Mayor.
Getting better.
So initially when this project was presented to me, I was very tough on these developers. Per our housing element right before, you guys heard, we are not required to make any general plan amendments to appease the RENA requirements, placed on us by the state. However, we also saw that we do need some more above moderate housing. When I spoke with these developers, I said densifying this area, creating more traffic, pretty much all the concerns that you've heard from people were my exact concerns. Also that gas station, which if you go on next door right now, it's running rapid with, people talking about when are we going to fix it? What are we going to do? And the fact that this developer actually reached out to the property owner, I've been in contact with that property owner for the first time in years, and that he's actually making progress. I feel like having a developer that's really working with the community and look at the big picture of what is it going to do to the intersections on Taylor? What's it going to do to the intersections at Wormlands and Vista Way, Vista Grande and Vista Way? And then another one, that blind corner on Vista Grande. What are your plans for making sure that's well lit? Are there going to be mirrors around there? Are you going to actually gate this community? And I really feel like the developer worked with the community to come up with what I feel is a tangible benefit. The only reason we would ever amend our general plan or change our general plan if a project comes in and is going to be a tangible benefit to the entire community. After meeting with the residents, and I've walked the site, I've met with the developer, and I walked the site and met with the previous developer. Initially, when this project came forward in 2017, even as 14 lots, I was the sole no vote. It was 4-1, and I said, don't do it, and it was done anyways. And there was this big scare that these acre houses are going to be built, and all this stuff's going to happen really quick. And mind you, nothing's happened. Nobody's came forward to improve that community at all or do anything in that area. There's not necessarily a market for anybody to come in there and build 1 acre lots. And the half-acre lots, they do actually landlock other properties that are half acre. And some of the benefits that I heard from the community, because I said, look, in order to do this, what's it doing to the residents that are directly affected? And I know we heard from 3 residents that were pretty close. I met with 8 residents that actually live in every single parcel that is the south side of this property. So every time it rains, mud comes onto their property. Every time they come home, they have to drive down Vista Grande. And I'm talking the picture that was shown to us by the developer on his slideshow. That's a beautiful picture. There's currently potholes that are about 2 feet deep, riddled like moguls on a ski slope all the way down that road. This developer has spoken with the current residents and said that he is going to improve that road. He's going to widen that road. He's also going to mitigate the drainage in the area so that the residents below aren't going to get flooded out. Additionally, when this new road is built, he's going to put sewer stubs to all 8 properties that are tied into this property. So if they want to tie into the sewer, they may have to pay for pumping, but it's going to make it really easy for the current owners in the area to tie into sewer. He's also going to underground all the power lines. Anytime we have a new development, we have them underground the power lines. I live off of Foothill Drive in Vista, basically connects to Wormlands. Wormlands is the intersection right here, and I drive by this area every single day. Undergrounding those power lines, improving that area, putting in new streets, putting in new drainage mitigation, and putting in these properties really does improve the area. And from a fire safety standpoint, adding that rear access to that area so that a fire engine can get through and save residents in that area is another huge benefit to everybody that lives on Vista Grande. They can access the property from either end. So This developer has really went above and beyond. When we have developers coming into Vista, we want to make sure that they're not only reaching out to the immediate community, but also going above and beyond and reaching out to the surrounding communities. I feel like this developer is really doing that. We're not approving a project. I haven't even seen what his properties are going to look like. There is a need for housing in our area. If you have any friends out looking for houses, there just aren't a lot of inventory right now. And this area is a beautiful area. We talk about the views being great. It's called Vista Grande. Not sure what the English translation is. Basically, great views, right? So I think this is a fantastic area. I think it's a fantastic plan for a development. And I think that if the improvements are done, that this developer has, promised, and we really want to hold the developer's feet to the fire. So as they come in and present the actual project, what does it look like? Are they, taking care of the blind corners? Are they fixing the intersections? What is the traffic study? Are they allowing for an extra right-hand turn somewhere or something like that to really relieve pressure on other citizens and our infrastructure? So improvements don't happen by the city all the time. We can't afford to go out there and repave and underground utilities and install sewer. But to have a developer who wants to come in our town and provide sidewalks to walk on, provide roads, improve our crosswalk, improve our traffic flow, I think this is a benefit to our community, and it's something worth considering this particular general plan amendment. This being in my district, I wanted to do a whole lot of research before I came forward, and I really wanted to make sure that this developer was going to benefit our community and our district and our city as a whole. And I really feel like they've worked really hard to make that happen, and that this is a project that can actually get built, that can actually benefit the community. So I am in support of seeing where this would go moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, so Councilmember Franklin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with everything that Councilman Green said. I want to, for everybody who's watching, I want to point out that when we do have the opportunity outside of the general plan discussion, which only happens once every number of years, we spend far more time visiting with stakeholders, neighbors, actually understanding who developers are and what their vision is. We get into a deep dive and have a deep conversation like the one we're having right now. When we're going through the entire general plan update process, we're going through thousands of pages. And the detail of a project like this would be completely overlooked, and the community would not have the opportunity to look in on these details and to be a part of this discussion, in such a detailed way about a specific project. So I really do think it's important that we take these as they come, and that we examine how the community has an opportunity to engage in this dialogue, and the neighbors have an opportunity to have a hearing before the council. I think that's incredibly important. Obviously, whether it's a half acre or acre, it doubles the number, but we're going from 14 to 28. We're not building 100 homes. It's a relatively small number of units. I heard a lot of the residents, very concerned about the condition of Vista Grande. What is the width of Vista Grande going to be? I mean, it looks like it's about 12 feet wide right now and failing on the edges. Mr. Conley, what is the plan as proposed here? What's the width of that street going to be?
The minimum width required to gain access to the project is 24 feet. And then once inside the project site, I believe the private street minimum is 24 to 28 feet, depending on how they want to design it.
So we're going to more than double the width of this street. Is that right?
In some locations, yes.
We expect curb and gutter and storm drain along that road.
That would all be conditioned as part of the development.
So we're going to have an incredible improvement of the quality of that road. And instead of the trash truck having to back its way out, it'll be able to go up and turn around. And, 2 lanes of roadway is certainly better for fire evacuation. And we all know that we don't have fire sweep through neighborhoods when it's wildfire. Houses that abut wildland areas are in peril, but for the houses that presently abut this wild area, they're actually going to be in a better fire safety situation. All the homes that are on the periphery that do vacant land, they are the ones that are really in peril. Fire doesn't tend to tear through developed neighborhoods because streets are natural fire break. And so I do think there's a lot of good fire reason if we're concerned about fire mitigation and we're concerned about evacuation safety. I think this makes a lot of sense. And I think the final thing I want to say is, we are in the city of Vista. I believe that our council is focused on smart growth. I believe that we're focused on appropriate growth. The state of California has grown by 1% every year for the last 30 years. The city of Vista has grown by 1% every year for the last 30 years. And sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but the average has worked out to be 1%. And I think it's really important for the council and for the community to keep the fact in perspective that our community is simply growing at the same rate of growth as the entire state. Our job as a council is to make sure that developers are bringing really good projects, that they're keeping their word. I love the idea of buying this land for a park. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources to do that. And we hear that suggestion. We heard that suggestion in a very recent project. We simply don't have the resources to buy every parcel under consideration for development because neighbors would like it to remain undeveloped. We are working very hard as a city, have acquired a number of new parklands. We made one of our top goals as a city to acquire more parkland. I believe, like Mark Twain said, they're not making any more of it. So we better get to work buying as much parkland as we can in the city now. In fact, I prefer personally to spend money acquiring parkland versus improving current parks because future generations will not be able to enjoy as much parkland if we don't make the decision in this generation to acquire that land. The land will only get more expensive. So I think the council has spoken out on that. And I know the staff has heard us because the staff has brought land acquisition for parks to us, and we've made more parks. And I know that we're going to continue to prioritize that. So with that said, what we're really facing a decision here tonight is, do we want to consent to allow a net addition of 14 homes that are half-acre homes? And, certainly those will be homes that will be, valued by the families that live there. I would support it.
Okay, Councilmember Contreras.
I just want to thank the community for voicing their opinion on this proposed change. I don't see how increasing the amount from 14 to 28 and with any of the proposed fire mitigation, I don't necessarily see it as a mitigation, because at this point, our firefighters would have to protect 14 more structures. Homes, when they catch on fire, it's detrimental. A lot of the toxins that are released are terrible. And we're seeing more and more firefighters having issues with that. So I think that it needs to remain the same. I appreciate all the outreach that these land acquisitioners have done. But I don't believe that it is in the interest of public safety to double the amount of homes on this particular area. There's no way, unless these homes are being made out of hempcrete or some kind of a clay, there's really no way to make that area safer by increasing the amount of homes on the area. So I have a different opinion than my previous two colleagues, and I'm not at all in favor of doubling the amount of homes. It feels like there's a cramming of homes on this lot. There's no consideration to open space. So if this were to move forward, I would like to see more consideration in regards to open space, which means at the end of the day, you can't cram as many homes as you want on a lot. So I'm sure that they're going to be beautiful homes, but it is just too much density for this area. And I'm not in support of the increase of 14 homes on the slot.
Okay. I agree with Deputy Mayor Green and Councilmember Franklin. I do support it. We really have a shortage of housing right now in all of Southern California. And so it helps with our arena numbers to do that. And half-acre lots aren't small lots. You know, they're 10,000 square foot lots are small lots, but these are half-acre lots, and that's not a bad sized lot for the new homes. And this will actually raise the property values around there because these will be pretty nice homes out there. So I agree with them. So with that, I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. So I will.
Madam Mayor, just speaking to the size of the lots real quickly, I own a home on 1/3 of an acre and consider myself to be very fortunate to have so much land. A half acre is a very large home lot, very unusually large for the city of Vista, certainly not for the unincorporated and rural surrounding areas, but for all of the suburban housing tract projects in our city, half acre is exceptionally unusual. These are still going to be higher than average value homes, but what we have with 1 acre lot is we're going to be, anybody that's going to build that project is going to be building homes. Those of you in the real estate business could put a number on it better than I could, but we're talking $1.5 million starting, edging up on $2 million. When you bring the size down to a half acre, you're probably, you're looking at, high eights, something like that. A working family with dual income can still afford that. It's very high. It's expensive, but families that want to live in Vista can afford that. And I think there's also somebody mentioned, I think it was Cliff talked about Rancho Santa Fe. You do have to assess that since 2017, there has not been a builder in a very hot housing market that has been willing to put their dime down to build these houses on a 1 acre map. Where there is ability to build right now, and it makes sense to buyers. They're snapping them up. There's a real demand for housing right now, and so I think if they thought they could have sold the 1 acre properties, I think there would have been a builder put their money down and build those houses. But we haven't seen somebody willing to invest and risk their capital, to do that. So I think we're going to see the project get built at a half acre. And I think I want to make this final point. And I know there's a few people that aren't going to be happy about it when we make the decision, but I really do want to make this point. If this land doesn't get developed now, then the neighbors will have to continue to be concerned. And a future council may decide to make 10,000 square foot lots there, or to put something else even higher density there. We can't say what a council 10 years from now will do. None of us likely to be on that council in 10 years. And so I actually think we're making a decision that neighbors will look at in the future as as we're being encouraged to densify and build up. A lot of us are resisting that. I know I am. I didn't move to Vista to be in a hugely dense city or to live amongst skyscrapers. I could have lived downtown if I'd wanted to. Did not choose that. Chose to be in Vista because of its suburban and semi-rural feel. But I think we're making a decision tonight to lock in a half acre here, where in the future, if this thing doesn't get built, we really could be looking at something entirely different. No one knows what that might be. So that's all the additional comments I had.
Okay, so I would I'd make a motion to staff recommendation. I guess we're making a motion to the review of the proposed general plan amendment. So I would make that motion. I have a second on it.
John, do we need a vote on this, or do you just need input?
This is advisory for the applicants, so there's no need for a vote, Mayor. I think the applicants heard from majority of council, and that was the purpose of tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
And that's a good point too. This will come back to Planning Commission, where the community will have another opportunity for public comment. And then before the general plan amendment is made, it'll come back to council another time. So we're going to have plenty more opportunity for the community to be heard on this. Isn't that right, John?
That's correct.
And I just want to add one more thing, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
To Councilman Contreras' point, when I met with a lot of the property owners there, they did say that they would love to have some type of walking trail or something kind of, kept in that community there. So as we get into the planning phases and it comes in and we actually get the aesthetics of the community, I'm totally supportive of making sure there's still a nice little trail through the community or something that the community can continue to enjoy and continue to take advantage of those particular views. And if it means we got to go to 27 units instead of 28 or 26, to add an amenity or something, that's when we'll make that decision. So I appreciate that, Karina, and definitely know that we'll be working with the developer to make sure that it's something the community likes. Thank you.
Okay, with that, that finishes that subject, and we will move on to our oral communications. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on agency-related matters that are not on the agenda. If any members of the public wish to address the City Council, they may indicate so by using the raise hand feature or by pressing *9 now. So, City Clerk Valdez, do we have any members of the public that wish to provide oral communication?
Yes, we have several. The first is Desiree. Go ahead, Desiree. Desiree, if you unmute, thank you.
Yes, but I think, is this in regards to what we were just discussing? I think my hands, yes?
No, that conversation was...
Yeah, it's done. No, that's what I thought. I'm sorry. My hand was stuck up on... Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you. All right. So we have Jessica Goldstein. Go ahead, Jessica.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Hello, Mayor Ritter and esteemed council members. My name is Jessica Goldstein. I'm a Vista native. I'm calling in with some concerns I would like for you to address. My first concern is of former council member Amanda Rigby's recent tweets on Twitter promoting domestic terrorism and supporting the attack on our nation's capital. I would like to ask that you all formally release a statement denouncing her treasonous views. Mayor Ritter, you yourself on September 6, 2018, released a graphic while running for mayor in which you were quoted saying, quote, "We have to uphold our laws," end quote, where you titled said graphic, quote, "Safety is my #1 priority. We must do this by upholding our laws," end quote. I believe that to remain silent is to remain complicit and condone such views against our nation and our governmental officials. I'm wondering why the only statement you have made, Mayor Ritter, is that while you do not condone her actions, you refuse to denounce her actions with public statement, and also why you will not acknowledge and denounce the actions of the terrorists at the Capitol. That said, I would like to move to Councilman Joe Green to address a recent event in which he violated a statewide mandate to hold a wedding for his daughter with over 10 people present from multiple households, not practicing social distancing or wearing masks. I would like to clarify what mandate means for him as per the Merriam-Webster dictionary. An authoritative command, especially a formal order from a superior court or official to an inferior one. Councilman Green, a law and a mandate have the same power to be enforced. The only difference is how it came to be. A law is passed by the Senate and the House of Representatives and signed by the governor. A mandate is made by the governor with the power given to them by the legislature in a state of emergency. To violate a statewide mandate that is put in place to protect all citizens during a global pandemic as a local politician and leader is unconscionable. By flagrantly breaking laws, you are showing how little you care about your local citizens' health by violating this mandate and perpetuating a pandemic which hurts small local businesses, mine included. Businessmen and women like myself are suffering because a pandemic that should have only lasted 2 weeks has now dragged on for more than 10 months. And your response to constituents of Vista who have businesses in District 2 but reside in other Vista districts that are concerned about their businesses and local laws is, and I quote, ask your friends and your rep. I'm neither, end quote. I would like to remind you, Mr. Green, district lines were drawn to ensure that each area had proper representation by someone living in that area. But as a city council member, you are supposed to represent all of Vista's citizens. I would like to know why you refuse to represent all residents and business people of Vista, Mr. Green. I would also like to demand that you step down from your position as a local leader, since you very clearly lack the necessary leadership skills Vistans need during this time. And you have stated clearly that you do not represent all the citizens of Vista, both in writing.
Sorry, your time is up.
And by your actions. Thank you.
All right, next is Carol. Go ahead, Carol.
Hi, it's Carol Jeffries again. I know you guys all got my letter. I sent it to all of you and it's in the packet, but I wanted to read it out loud. So mine is also, I'm also addressing the violence at the Capitol. The tragic and treasonous events of last Wednesday at our nation's capital have shaken my family, our community, and our country. It is easy to feel helpless in these situations, seeing as how we live so far away from the Capitol, but something that could make us all feel more at ease is solidarity with our immediate neighbors. Having our city officials take an official public stance against violence, treason, terrorism, and the cults of white supremacy and conspiracy could go a long way toward easing the fear and unease many of us are feeling. We live in a diverse city, racially, economically, spiritually, and politically, and I know many are feeling alienated by our country's leadership. But our city's leadership can and should take a stand against this terrorism. I'm asking you to please represent us as a peaceful community in an official public statement. Regards from myself and my husband, Brett. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Carrie Winchester. Go ahead, Carrie.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Carrie Winchester, and this is a public courtesy announcement to Mayor Ritter and Deputy Mayor Green, and to all of our city council members. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for sharing your concern for our city and our community. And may your service to our fair city be unbiased, fair, equitable, and on the right side of the law. I hope as we continue this new year and we can reflect upon the last year and take lessons learned as well as lessons still being learned seriously. We know that this pandemic that we are facing is not over, locally or globally, and we know that COVID-19 is here whether we like it or not. We have to make the necessary adjustments, sacrifices, and continue to do so, not only for ourselves, but those we love in our community as a whole. It is by my utmost restraint that I do not cuss out our own mayor for her Instagram post about her trip to Mexico. It is with even greater restraint that I do not cuss out our Deputy Mayor Joe Super Spreader Green for his trip to Mexico and most recently hosting his daughter's wedding. Congratulations, seriously, congratulations on your vacations and your memories that you've made. Well done. Congratulations on your daughter's nuptials. I really hope that your actions have no repercussions and that you and those around you don't have any repercussions from the spread of COVID-19. The blatant, arrogant, ignorant disregard and culpability for potentially spreading COVID-19 is just gregarious. I hope that the event you attended and the participants that are there have no backlash and that no one you care about or any of your guests that you care about contract this virus. You are seriously showing no respect. You're disregarding and disrespecting your own self, your loved ones, and your community. You're flaunting your regional stay-at-home order that we are still under. As public leaders and servants, I expect more. I personally would like to ask Deputy Mayor Joe Green to resign from his position. He has lost his ability to speak for the community of Vista. I personally would like to ask Mayor Ritter to look at the impact of her actions and act even more stupendous by stepping down from her post. You are on notice. We notice you. We see you. We see your transgressions. You have both broken the stay-at-home order and your trust to do what the right thing is for your community that you serve. Please wear your masks. Please stay socially distanced. Stay safe, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Becky Rapp. Go ahead, Becky.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a mother to 3 teens and youth group mentor. I wanted to take this opportunity to update you on ever-changing statistics regarding marijuana misuse. Marijuana businesses market on social media using bright colors and fruity flavors, actively targeting our kids. Their mission is threefold. 1, start them early. 2, increase frequency of use. And 3, increase potency. We know marijuana products contain enormous amounts of THC that completely rewire adolescents' developing brains, creating irreversible cognitive changes and potentially leading to years of further addiction. It is no secret that anxiety and mental health issues are on the rise. Teens are resorting to unhealthy outlets such as marijuana use. Recently, Dave King, Executive Director for San Diego Imperial Valley High Drug Trafficking Area, or HIDA, stated we are in the midst of a vaping epidemic. Emergency department visits and admissions for any related marijuana misuse has increased by 89%. And hospitals are seeing on average of 29 discharges a day due to marijuana, and it remains the primary drug of choice for youth ages 12 to 17. Marijuana is becoming so highly commercialized, it's crucial that Vista help educate on the negative effects of marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jim Riggenbach. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. I have questions and concerns about your stances on the insurrection last week and our local law enforcement's readiness for a possible local insurrection. First, on your stances, specifically to any conservative Republicans on the council, a violent insurrection was attempted by Trump supporters. If you're a conservative Republican, you are naturally linked to Donald Trump. Your former ally on the council, Amanda Rigby, recently made comments online in support of the insurrectionists. The question then is, do you align yourself with Donald Trump and do you support insurrection? I think the answers to these questions are needed to gauge your ability to lead. Secondly, I have questions about the readiness and effectiveness of the Sheriff's Department. It is clear that law enforcement failed last week in Washington because they don't take white supremacists seriously. Also, in 2015, an FBI policy guide warned that investigations into far-right extremists showed active links to law enforcement. Yesterday, the FBI released a bulletin that warns of planned attacks on state and local government buildings. The need for effective public safety is essential at this time. These points lead me to a few questions. Does Vista have a far-right white supremacy problem that would make the current threat even more serious? Does the San Diego County Sheriff's Department have a white supremacy problem? Did any Sheriff's Department personnel travel to Washington, D.C. last week? Do any Sheriff Department personnel support last week's insurrection? Have you been updated on our local security plans? I have little doubt that the Sheriff's Department is overwhelmingly unanimously staffed with honorable men and women who are ready to fulfill their duties. But considering the failure of law enforcement last week, the reports of white supremacy links to the profession, I think it is important that the City Council exercise their oversight by at least asking these tough questions of Captain White and to make sure they are prepared for potential violence. Switching topics, Vista has one of the worst COVID case rates in the county, especially zip code 92083. Mayor, what additional steps can the council make to help alleviate these numbers? What recommendations do you have for your citizens? And to Deputy Mayor Green, a social media post attributed to you indicates that you hosted a non-essential event with violations of the health order. Can you please address this? This is especially important to clear up for my family. My wife's father passed away 3 weeks ago, my kid's grandpa. We made the difficult decision not to honor his life with a memorial at this time. We required people to travel and congregate with others outside their households. We chose community safety over our personal wishes. I hope you can assure us that our leaders are going to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cliff Kaiser. Go ahead, Cliff.
Greetings, Mayor and Council. I wholeheartedly disagree with several of the previous callers, and I applaud all of you council members for standing up for the city of Vista and against, to a certain extent, some of the bureaucracy of the state government. The COVID virus is potent and has significant potential. But the bureaucracy, deep state type of regulations simply do not mandate the regulations that they are placing down upon us. I enjoyed a wonderful Christmas and New Year's with my family from across the United States, and I continue to move in that effort to do that. I believe that the efforts that are in place to mitigate this virus are worthwhile, and the effort by the state and federal government to do otherwise is unworthy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Sarah Spinks. Go ahead, Sarah.
My name is Max Spinks, and I go to VMS. 3 years ago, I went to Washington, D.C. and visited the Capitol building. I noticed that the Capitol is sort of a sanctuary holding a lot of the USA's past. I feel like what happened on January 6, 2021 wasn't right, and I think you should address what happened during the Capitol raid. All that I'm asking is that you make an official statement, because I know as local leaders, you took an oath to defend our country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Next is Gary Moore. Go ahead, Gary.
Hi, this is Ann Moore, Gary's wife. And I'd just like to, I've been hearing all the comments tonight, and we've lived here for 26 years and haven't taken much interest in the city council. It's just been something, an institution that's been running Vista. And tonight's the first council meeting that we've attended. And I just want to say, I really appreciate you people. I really do. And I appreciate the job that you do, and how I don't think that your job is to correct the world's problems. You're dealing with Vista, and we really appreciate all of your care. And regardless of your political persuasion, you're doing what's right for Vista. And we've seen that tonight in your comments, and we're just very appreciative of you. And don't let the naysayers get you down. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And next is Rachel Beld. Go ahead, Rachel.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Happy New Year to you all. I am here this evening to just share with you 2 upcoming Chamber of Commerce activities that I want you all to know about, as well as the general public. On January 25th, Vista Chamber will be hosting the State of the Community. We're excited to have Mayor Ritter as our keynote speaker to share a bit about what's happening in Vista over the last year and the look ahead to 2021. We'll also have speakers from our school district, from Tri-City Medical Center, from the Chamber, and then also a local economist is going to share a bit about workforce and jobs in the area. We are really excited that because of the opportunity that COVID has presented to us to share this event as a live stream event, we will be able to accommodate more members of the public. So we invite you to visit our Facebook page and find the event and register for tickets. We are excited about that. Secondly, 2020 has been a hard year for our businesses, and we know that. We have an opportunity for all of our local residents and council and staff to nominate businesses for Heroes of Vista Awards. So we would love for our community to get involved and submit a nomination for businesses that have stepped up, stepped out, and really shown over the last year. So with that, I just want to ask you all to make your nominations. They're due by February 1st, and that form is also available on our social media sites at Vista Chamber. And I wish you all Happy New Year, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that is it for speakers. So we'll go ahead and close public comment at this time.
Okay. then that takes us to our remarks. And I have a couple things to say here. San Diego County residents can now text 911 in an emergency to request help from any local police, fire, or EMS agency if calling isn't an option. So calling is still the best way. However, if you can't call, then text. More information is available on our website at cityofvista.com. And also, if you received a new electronic or gadget over the holidays and are wondering what to do with your old one, take them to the city's drop-off center. The city offers a free, convenient disposal for the items. Hours of operation and location information are available online at cityofvista.com. And I've been out there several times, and it's a great thing to have that convenient disposal out there. So use it, but you have to be from the City of Vista, and you have to show your driver's license. But please use it. And with that, I will go to each council member and ask for comments. So I'll start with our deputy mayor.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. And I first off just want to start by thanking my council for all of their opinions and all the work that they put into these agendas. We don't always agree, but all of your perspective and all the knowledge and all the research that you guys do, whether it's a project or a presentation, it's greatly appreciated. And I know that the citizens appreciate it. And I, as a hardworking council member, greatly appreciated as well. I do just want to make a statement on my own that just basically says that I do 100% condemn the attacks on the Capitol. I feel that any protester that trespassed or harmed any of our Capitol police officers should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. It's not something that I support. Protesting peacefully is one thing, but that was something that was ridiculous and a direct siege against our nation. I do not support that, and I do think that all the offenders should be prosecuted. With that, I thank my council. Hope that y'all have a great.
Yeah, go on to Councilmember Franklin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilman Green, I wholeheartedly and fully agree with you. Those individuals who illegally entered the Capitol building and any individual who uses violence or breaks the law in the name of trying to make a political statement, there is no excuse whatsoever for violence, for interrupting government function, for desecrating any of our buildings, whether it's a courthouse in Oregon or the United States Capitol building, doesn't matter. Or even if it's a city council building, doesn't matter where in the country. We have to respect the institutions of government at all levels. We have to fully prosecute any person who uses violence in the name of political communication. It is so important that we use our voices to hear each other and to allow each other to speak and be heard. Even if we vehemently disagree with one another, it is incredibly important that we remember that discussion is the way that we peacefully solve our problems and compromise and come to solutions for the government and governance of our people at all levels. And if we ever fail our fellow citizens in creating an environment where they feel that they can be heard and that they can solve their differences with words, then we are all guilty of creating an environment where violence becomes, for misguided individuals, a last frustrated option. But I reiterate, under no circumstances do I believe any of us on this council support violence. Whether it's breaking out the windows of a local business or murdering a Capitol police officer. I had the unique honor and privilege of working in the United States Capitol building. I visit it frequently. I love the saying that says, "We've built no temple but the Capitol, and we consult no common oracle but the Constitution." My loyalty is first to my country and our Constitution above all else. To my conservative principles far after, after my loyalties to my family and to God, and to each and every one of those of you who I call a neighbor, and whether you're my neighbor in my neighborhood or my city or my country. My belief that every single American is my countryman and deserves an opportunity to be heard and to peacefully make his case for why he deeply disagrees with those things that I hold dear. I will always give him, and I will always be respectful. And I will always create a space for every American and every Vistan to express their differences and to feel heard. Even if at the end of the day, I don't agree, I will always listen respectfully, and I will create that space to be heard. The current culture of canceling and doxing and silencing is creating a very dangerous precedent where some individuals become frustrated. We can't allow that. The First Amendment exists and is first amongst the Bill of Rights for an incredibly important reason. And it's because only by protecting free speech do we have a civil and peaceful society. The First Amendment is the absolute safeguard against violence. We must protect and defend every American's right to speak and be heard, and making ad hominem attacks against whether it's members of our council. We heard some of that tonight, or any official. Speak to the issues. All of us as Americans have more to say than to attack and belittle each other as individuals, and it never advances the political discourse. Think hard, take your time, tell us what you believe, share your values and your opinions with us, but not your personal attacks, because they don't change anyone's mind. They drive us further to our corners, and they cause us to be further separated as a people. I love all of you. I truly do. Those of you who I deeply disagree with on matters of vital importance in political dogma, I still love you because you're still my fellow Americans. And there's not a person in this city who, if they needed help tonight, I wouldn't come help them. Whether it was to find their lost dog or to help their families when they suffered a calamity, if you need me, I'd be there for you. I truly would. There's not one of my neighbors that knock on my door tonight that I wouldn't help. And trust me, some of them don't put the same political signs in the yard that I do. But I love everybody. And we've got to all start to first love one another, to allow each other to be heard. And then when we do use our words, it's so important that we speak to the issues and we make well-reasoned arguments and we don't use the personal attacks. That's all I'm going to say. And especially on the internet. I spent a lot of time reading Nextdoor. Nextdoor is a good way to learn about what's happening in the community. It can also be incredibly vitriolic, and people can savage one another on Facebook and on Nextdoor, and they can be incredibly horrible to one another. And particularly for those of us who live in the same community, we shop at the same grocery store, we attend the same schools and meetings and churches. We've got to be good to one another. We've got to be better than that. I challenge all of us to be good to one another on social media, to speak to the principles of the issues and not to tear one another down. I pray that all of you would hear this and really think about speaking specifically to the issues and not about tearing one another down. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you listening. God bless you all. Have a good night.
Councilmember Contreras.
In regards to the domestic terrorism that happened at our Capitol, I 100% denounce violence, especially as a means to make any kind of political point or speech. I think it really speaks to the fact that as elected officials, our words have a lot of meaning. And, unfortunately, there have been a lot of lies perpetuated about the election, and those have had consequences and will continue to have consequences. So we need to take seriously that we as human beings all deserve respect, and we deserve the ability to communicate our grievances in a way that is nonviolent. And I have been part of many protests, and I have only ever been part of peaceful protests. When there is a coordinated attack in any way, shape, or form on a government building, on an individual that represents people at any level of government, it is not okay. And we do have to look at how we frame the things we say and remember that our words have power, and that also, as a nation, we need to come together. As a city, we need to come together. Inclusivity and a participatory style of government is paramount for our democracy, for our republic, however you want to call it. We need to have unity, especially in the face of a pandemic where we don't know if today is the last time we're going to see someone. So I hope that across the nation, we see more healing. We see less lies perpetuated that have real consequences. I hope that here in the city of Vista, we can come together, and that if there ever is any kind of protest or any kind of grievance, that it is carried out in a peaceful and nonviolent manner. And if such is not the case, that we take seriously any kind of violent actions and hold all individuals accountable. Because what happened at our Capitol is not okay, but it is a predictable action when we continue to perpetuate the type of hate and the type of lies, specifically in a nation where we don't have the type of media literacy that is necessary to be able to figure out what some of the agendas are behind a lot of the news that is really just opinions that we listen to. So please consider yourself a patriot if you move forward in a nonviolent and peaceful way, because outside of that, you are not being a patriot to this country. I love America. I love my neighbors. I love very deeply humanity, but we must do better, all of us. And every single person that was part of that attack, it is not okay. It is completely wrong. And they do need to be held accountable. And it is treasonous. And that's all I have to say on that matter. What I want to say about my weekly trash pickups is that we still have them on suspension due to the fact that COVID is still out of control, especially when you look at Vista. We have a very high positivity rate. And it just really sucks because I know people like to get together and pick up trash. It's just not super safe to do that right now. So I look forward to the day that we can gather again on Wednesdays, even with our little masks on, and socially distance to pick up trash. But unfortunately, tomorrow is not going to be that Wednesday. And that's all I have to say for today. And I hope that everybody has a good night. And please carry peace in your heart and practice it. Thank you.
Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I want to start off by saying that I absolutely condemn any acts of domestic terrorism and treason and white supremacy that we witnessed as a nation. We know that, it might not be happening right here in Vista, but certain attitudes do exist here in Vista. I know a lot of people were concerned when the person who previously held the seat that I am in made comments endorsing these kinds of treasonous behavior. And I just want to say to any of those listening who are, you're frustrated. Maybe you're frustrated at your government. Maybe you're frustrated about your life. Maybe there's people in your community that you don't like. There's experiences that you have had that are hurtful and damaging, or you have grievances from one way or another. I highly encourage for you to participate, right? For you to not distance yourself from your government, because we are a government that is by the people and for the people. So I encourage you, lean into your frustrations, lean into your agitations, and do something with them that is productive, that is helpful, right? I was able to do that. Now we have a representative that outwardly condemns treasonous behavior and domestic terrorism, right? I'm so grateful for the voters in District 3 that elected me, right? And now you have a representative that's able to, confidently and honestly say that I condemn those acts. So it's really important, right, that we all participate, that you come to city council meetings, you share your voice, your opinions and your ideas, because that is what helps us create progress, right? And then even more so, right, when we see these attitudes towards our government, right, that are treasonous, or if we hear attitudes or see behaviors that are, racist, or that they might exhibit white supremacist attitudes, that we speak of them, right, that we call them out and that we recognize them and we say, this is not okay. So I think it's really great that everyone was able to come together tonight and say, this is not okay. We 100% validate, right, the citizens and the residents in our community that are asking us to be leaders, right, and speak on this, because it might not be happening in our own backyard, but we know that these kinds of attitudes can be prevalent, right, even if they're not seen right on the surface. So as we move forward, right, in this difficult time, I really encourage everyone to, be participating, right, to come together, right, even when there's disagreements, because we have an obligation, right, as the creators of our own government and of our own communities, to make them as good and healthy as possible, right? So that's my goal as your elected official and as your representative for District 3 and all of Vista. And I hope that, we can all move forward in a way that is safe and peaceful, and be able to express ourselves in a healthy way. So hope everyone has a wonderful night, stay safe, and God bless.
Thank you. And I agree with a lot of what was said tonight. And one of the reasons I didn't want to make a statement was because a lot of the emails that I got were political, and I didn't want this to be I didn't want to make a political statement out there, because it's not political. I absolutely agree to peaceful protests, but the people that broke into the U.S. Capitol were actually criminals, and I think they all should be arrested and prosecuted, and to the highest extent of the law. So that's how I feel. But I just did not want to come out with a political statement, because that's not who I am, and it is not a political issue. So anyway, so I'm going to move on to Patrick Johnson, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have 2 items of good news to share this evening. I want to congratulate our fire department. They received the American Heart Association, I'm going to read this, the Mission Lifeline EMS Gold Plus Award. It's one of the longest named awards, but it honors and recognizes EMS organizations such as our fire department for their commitment and their dedication in providing care and treatment to those who are experiencing cardiac emergencies. And so we're very proud of the fire department for receiving the award, and the role they play in helping the residents of Vista and around North County, for that matter, who experience heart attacks, and making sure that they're given the right care, so when they get to the hospital, they're able to be taken care of. Another item is that the San Diego County Food Bank raised $30,000 in the most recent our first annual Jingle Terrace Park at the Moonlight. And so they raised $30,000 and they collected 12,110 pounds of food from the participants that went around Jingle Terrace Park. And so I want to put this in perspective, and that is, typically, the food bank generates 2,000 pounds of food on a given day from the entire county. And they generated over 12,000 in Vista in their partnership with Jingle Terrace. And they said they raised the most of any third-party partnership in all of 2020. So they want to come back. We're hopeful that Jingle Terrace can come back next year. And I do want to thank Colleen Collar-Smith for her vision and creating Jingle Terrace Park, as well as all the staff from Public Works and Recreation and Communications for what they did to make sure that it happened. And last, just want to let you know that the Civic Center will remain closed during this COVID period. We are teleworking. We do have some appointments in terms of community development and building and city clerk and code enforcement, but we will be continue teleworking until February 1st. We will be closed altogether on Martin Luther King Day, which is January 18th, but trash service for Vista residents will not be impacted that week. So thank you very much.
Okay, how about our city attorney, Daryl Piper? You have anything tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to communicate to everybody my new wish for the new year, which is happier new year.
Okay. How about our city clerk?
Thank you, Mary. Yes, I did want to remind everyone that we are in our annual recruitment process for commissions, committees, and boards. Information is available on the website, and applications for new individuals are due February 18th. So if you have any questions, you could contact me at kvaldez@cityofvista.com. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, it looks like we're done, and have a happy new year, everybody, and I will see you at the next meeting. Bye-bye.